Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to this summit. As you just heard, the summit is being recorded, and let's get started. These recordings are going to be put onto social media, so it's for educational and promotional purposes. My name is Edwin Rutsch. I'm the director of the Empathy Center located here in Santa Barbara. You see it in the picture behind me. The center's mission is to build the empathy movement and to raise the level of mutual empathy in the world through education and community initiatives. And I'd like to welcome you to this Empathy Summit on Empathy Circles, the foundational empathy movement practice. I'm now going to turn it over to Ruth, who is our host today. Ruth is based in England and serves as an empathy circle trainer and facilitator, as well as a 16 guideline facilitator for the Foundation for Developing Compassion and Wisdom. Take it away, Ruth.
Thank you very much, Edwin, and welcome everybody to the 6th Empathy Summit. My name is Ruth Cook, and we are delighted to have you all here. I will be your co-host for the first hour of our speakers' presentations. And then following the speakers' presentations, we are inviting you all to stay and participate in an empathy circle. So the Empathy Summit is a gathering aimed at promoting understanding, connection, and empathy in various areas of society. So each of the summit speakers today will be exploring some of the foundational practices of building a culture of empathy. So I would like to welcome our speakers today. So Edwin Rutsch, Rasha Kutty, Zweier, Janna Weiss, Bill Filler, Rob Volpe, Anita Nowak, Maria Ross, Bob Brown, and Annette Dubreui. Cara Jean Wilson will co-host the second hour of the summit. Cara is one of the inspiring empathy experts who motivated me to join this wonderful community.
What's that?
After the speakers' presentations, you will have the opportunity to participate in an empathy circle. So Janna Weiss, who's going to guide you through the how-to practice before you join the circle. And once in the circle, an experienced empathy circle facilitator will be there to support you throughout the experience. And with the speakers, I'll be giving a 1-minute notice to our speakers before your time is up. So I'll be interrupting you. So a heartfelt thank you to all the speakers for your commitment to empathy. It really can make a difference in the world and with the world. And we'd also like to extend our deepest gratitude to all our generous sponsors and partners, the Empathy Center and community. You can see more about us at the link in the chat, and we invite your organization to be a partner and sponsor. Please see our website. I'd like to thank the volunteers. We'd also like to thank the amazing volunteers who give freely of their time and work to make these summits possible as free events. So without further ado, let's turn this summit into an extraordinary celebration of empathy. And I now have the honor to announce Edwin Rutsch as our first speaker. Edwin, the founding director of the Empathy Center. He is a developer and long-term evangelist of the Empathy Circle practice. Over to you, Edwin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ruth, and thank you everyone else for being here. What I wanted to do in my presentation is I'm going to show a slideshow, and let me get that up on the screen here. If I can. There we go. And what I wanted to do in this presentation is I want to give you a short overview of how the Empathy Circle came about. I see this process, which is based on mutual active listening, as the core practice of the empathy movement, with active listening being just very fundamental to, as a fundamental skill to learn for fostering empathy. And what I want to do is cover the influences of how the practice was developed, and then all the other presentations will help build on that. So a little bit about me is my interest in empathy started in 2008. I was making some documentaries on different human values, I was exploring progressive values. And I came across the topic of empathy when I was doing my interviews, and I thought, hey, this is really an important topic. It's really fundamental to how we relate to each other as human beings. And so I started researching and studying and interviewing and just really learning about empathy through, just kind of through all the research and the interviews. And one of the first people I came across was an academic, George Lakoff, who teaches linguistics at UC Berkeley. And he talked about how empathy is the basis of progressive thought, and it's the basis of progressive family life. And since I was thinking of myself as a progressive at that time, I thought, well, I want to, dig into these progressive values, and he was kind of making the case that empathy was core to progressive values. And I don't think of myself as a progressive currently. I've sort of left the different sort of political views, and now really see myself as, grounded in an empathic way of being. But anyway, at that time, I was very much into just looking at progressive values. And he also talked about empathy as the heart of democracy. And that is, he says, that is what this is all about. Citizens caring about each other, other citizens, and having a government that is of the people and by and for the people. So just seeing that, mutual empathy is really the core of democracy. And then around this time as well, Barack Obama was running for office, and he was saying, he says, it seems to me like we've got an empathy shortage, an empathy deficit, and it's more serious than the federal budget deficit. And we've become so cynical that it is almost naive to believe that we can understand each other across the gulf of race or class, religion, region, or religion. And so his campaign was very much based on fostering this quality of addressing the empathy deficit, really. And I thought, well, maybe I can also help with that issue as well. Is just really, through all the research and, making, documentary and so forth. So those were some of the sort of philosophical motivations for my interest in empathy. And also in my teens, I did a lot of traveling. I was a seeker and, traveling around the world for 10 years, sort of seeking the meaning of life. And when I discovered empathy, the value of empathy, connecting with connecting with our fellow human beings and seeing our common humanity, it really resonated with, I think, with what I was seeking. So I started learning about empathy practices. I had that sort of that philosophical, empathy is this important value. And in my studying of empathy, I started learning about active or empathic listening. And one of the first people I learned about was Carl Rogers. So Carl Rogers is considered one of the top 2 or 3 clinical psychologists in history, for that matter. And in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, he developed this process he called the person-centered therapy, where he would just listen to people actively, to his clients. And on YouTube, there's this video that you can find where this person, Gloria, there's 3 different therapists use their different therapeutic approaches with her. And, he used his person-centered therapy, using active listening with her, and you can see a demonstration of how that works. So, and Rogers also really articulated and developed the whole active listening process. He gives credit. He mentions that he had someone that did Ronkian therapy, and that she was the one that told him about when you listen, you kind of look for the deeper feelings that you're listening for, that you're listening when the person is speaking, and that you hear the feelings kind of behind under the surface of what they're saying, and you actively reflect that as well. So the way this worked is we have person-centered therapy where the therapist actively listens one way to the client. And so they listen for, they're doing the typical therapy is, like a 50-minute session. So for just 50 minutes or an hour, Rogers would just do the active listening. The speaker would speak and he would just reflect back his understanding. He would not ask questions. He wouldn't give advice. He wouldn't give sympathy. He wouldn't judge them. He would only listen to them actively. And so this really, I started seeing, as I did more and more research, seeing that this practice really becomes really a foundation for the empathy, creating an empathic way of being. And then I learned about Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication. And it's actually the first group that I connected after I got interested in empathy in the Bay Area. I got connected with the local Bay Area NVC community, and which was our NVC for nonviolent communication community. And this organization was developed by Marshall Rosenberg, who was a graduate student with Rogers. And so he learned, the philosophy of empathic philosophy and this active listening skills. And he built on that and developed a whole community around the tools and practices and mindset that he developed. And so in his process in nonviolent communication, it's not just a therapist listening to another person. It's anyone can use active listening to listen to another person. So he taught, in his workshops, he taught how to just human relationships, how you could use active listening to speak, to listen to others. And then another influence that I came across in my research about actual practices was Helen Hunt and Harville Hendricks, and they developed what they call imago relationships. And so they again, took this work of Rogers of active listening, and they've put it into relationships. And so they developed a whole tool set for what they call, like I said, imago relationships, and where it's mutual active listening between romantic couples. So when couples, if they're in conflict or even before they're in conflict, they would use active listening to just talk with each other so they could be sure that they really heard each other. And so this is like another manifestation of how people, different therapists and so forth used the active listening process. Then, continuing, as I kind of looked around, I saw that we have in Berkeley, I live in El Cerrito, which is near Berkeley, California. In Berkeley, there's a community mediation center, and they do this 40-hour training. And I took that training, and there again, active listening pops up. So there, if you have a conflict, you're a mediator. People come into the center there to have deal with some conflict. You have a mediator, and the mediator actually uses active listening to speak, to listen to one of the disputants, and then then they listen to the other, and it kind of goes, back and forth. They listen to each of the disputants, and that helps the people feel heard, and it kind of really helps to unravel the conflict, and the mediator helps with that. And then another workshop I did, which was very influential, was with Dominic Barter, and he developed something called restorative circles. And this is where you take a circle approach. And he developed this in Brazil. He's from the UK, but he developed it in Brazil. And he says he had a lot of influence from, Marshall Rosenberg and NVC. I'm not sure how much he looked into Roger's work, but does mention Rosenberg for some influences. So in this process, you have a circle and people who are, a couple of people who are in conflict. They invite other people into the circle to discuss the conflict, and you have a speaker, and then the speaker selects their listener, and then that listener reflects back their understanding of what the speaker says. And then, like in the empathy circle, when the speaker is done, the listener becomes the speaker, and they select the listener, and then they speak. And I believe there's no time limit, so people can just go on and on. And then it just goes around in the circle like that. And these sessions go 3 hours or more, where people discuss the conflict using active listening, and there's a lot of other steps to it, but I won't go into the other steps to it. Then another influence that I came across as I was kind of researching on the internet was Juanita Brown and David Isaacs, and they developed a process called World Cafe. And in the World Cafe process, they would just bring people together around tables, maybe 4 or 5 people to a table. And they would have a topic that they would discuss in small groups. And they would speak, talk for a little while. And then at some point, people from each table would get up and then go to another table, and they would do this a few times. And it was a way to just have people discuss with each other, and then for the ideas to shift from one table to the other. So those were just some sort of technologies, practices that I had seen. So as I was doing my research. And then in 2011, Occupy Wall Street happened, and people at Occupy Wall Street and that would say, it's the 99 against the 1%, and I think I was trying to build a culture of empathy, which I think is 100% empathy. That we don't have an us versus them mindset. So I got this canopy, this tent, and set up the empathy tent and took it to Occupy Wall Street in Berkeley. And that was in the fall of 2011. And that was our tent from the other side, just go there. And a few things I noticed about the dynamics of the camp there was a lot of factions and a lot of groups, and they would, were kind of at each other's throats, and there was a lot of conflict. And you can just see the different factions there. And so it was a rather somewhat dysfunctional sort of a community. But in the tent, we did one-on-one listening. So we had an empathy tent member and a community member would come in, and we would offer listening, active listening to them. And then another practice we tried was talking stick circle, where one person speaks, and then you pass the talking stick, and then another person speaks, and we go all the way around. And I found that process didn't work too well. I wasn't too happy with that process, because one person would just keep speaking and speaking, and I saw everyone wanted to speak. And another structure I saw there was they had Occupy Wall Street. They have the General Assembly, where you have one person speak and they speak to the whole group, and people would get up and speak, but sometimes that was kind of like manipulated, like who would get a chance to speak. So, and then I kind of thought, well, what's a way of really addressing sort of these conflicts that are there? And that's sort of where I had the idea of an empathy circle, sort of combining the World Cafe, but with the active listening. So you'd have small groups using active listening with each other, like in a World Cafe, but one person would speak and the other, would listen, and we'd go around. And then they would maybe go for an hour, and then they would shift, go around and meet with other people. And during the day, maybe it would just be a whole day of doing empathy circles because people didn't have much else to do at these camps. But then they closed down the camps, and I never got to really implement, try to develop the empathy circle and sort of idea. And then I sort of just sat on it and on the idea. And then I got connected with Liedewij Niesink, who is someone from the Netherlands that she has a PhD in empathy. And I interviewed her, and then afterwards she said, "Oh, let's work together to develop some empathy practices." And so we actually got together, and for like over a year, just sort of experimented and really kind of developed the empathy circle practice, and sort of experimented with different aspects to it. And we held this is actually go back. That's the first recorded empathy circle picture of it with four of us. And then this was a book club we did where it was like a 10-week book club with on a book club we applied the empathy circle practice in 2013. And we just we just kept innovating, coming up with different ideas. And then Levi got interested in other projects, and I just kept sticking with the empathy circle. And another thing that we added too was not just the empathy circle is just a practice, but also that it has an intention. And the intention is that we want to create a culture of empathy. Because the first website I created was the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and it's really about sort of cultural transformation. And then another milestone was in 2020, during the COVID period, Zweier and Bill Filler worked with some doctors at a hospital in New York. It was overwhelmed. They were dealing with COVID issues, and they developed the core of the Empathy Circle Facilitator training, and kept innovating and developing it. And then we were working together, and this is just a photo of our second Empathy Circle Facilitator training, cohort number 2. That was in 2020. And so with that, you can see that the Empathy Circle practice keeps developing. We keep adding, more aspects to it and keep expanding it. And now we're really trying to build the empathy movement with the Empathy Circle practice, and innovating on it is one of the core to the empathy movement. And these are just some of the cohorts that we have held online. I think we've done quite a few of them in the past 4 years or so. And we're holding them in person now here at the Empathy Center in Santa Barbara, and we're planning on holding them in person in the Bay Area, in New York, and in Phoenix as well. And so it's you can see this, this basic practice is growing, and our goal is really to teach all 8 billion people in the world how to take part in and facilitate an empathy circle, because it's really an easy first step gateway practice to deepening those empathy skills, and also creating that empathic way of being. And I really believe that this is just an excellent tool, practice, for building that global culture of empathy and nurturing, which will really nurture greater well-being and flourishing in the world. And it's going to be it's a long-term project. By to get all 8 billion people in the world to learn this practice. But yeah, I think it's very doable if we can get high-profile people like, Trump and Harris or so forth to do empathy circles instead of debates. Just one little thing like that could spread it all over the world, I believe. And it can really address a lot of the issues, the wars, and, issues, the dysfunction we have in our society in general. So thank you. Thank you for listening. And it was a lot of fun to create this presentation, to articulate how the history came about. And this is my first iteration. I'll probably refine it a little bit, and then we'll have it out there just for the record. So with that, thank you, and I'll turn it back over to you, Ruth.
Thank you, Edwin. I really appreciate being here for that important slideshow and presentation. Our next speaker is Rasha Kutty. Rasha, she is the founder of the Empathy University, offering training and workshops. Rasha will share how consistent participation in empathy circles can lead to deeper connections and enhanced well-being. It's my honor to introduce you to Rasha. Thank you. Over to you, Rasha.
Thank you so much. Let me just share my presentation. All right, so we all just heard about the history of the empathy circles, how it came about. And I think what I'm going to share is basically the, I would say, proof for how wonderfully, the empathy circle process works. So I got in touch with Edwin, I think, roughly mid 2020. And since then, around COVID time, we had done a lot of work together. I first took the facilitator training, then I used to co-facilitate with, Edwin, Lou, Bill, and the rest of the team. And those were wonderful days. And then what happened is around COVID time, because I wanted more people from this part of the world, like I come from India, so I wanted more people involved. And so I had started empathy circles every Tuesday. Like I started one here. And I just want to give a little bit of introduction as to how it's been going so far. It's called Empathy Matters Conversations. That's what we named it, Empathy Matters. And we've been doing this since April 2021. And the reason why we started, like I again said, during COVID, it was quite a lonely time. Wanted to connect with a lot of people who were struggling in different parts of the world.
Rasha, you're not doing. It's not a full screen. We're seeing your whole desktop. Just.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Maybe you have to do a reshare.
Yeah,
and just.
Thank you for letting me know. Does this work?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, all right. So, the reason we started was because we really wanted to connect during the COVID time. And especially me, I used to live alone. I really wanted some support around that time. And then we had this going on every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, which is basically around 8:30 India time, PM. And then it would go on. Initially, it was for 2 hours. Then we made it 1.5 hours just to respect the time that people were taking to be a part of it. We had 5 to 12 participants weekly. Initially, we had a lot of participants, but then over time. So now we regularly get 5 to 12 participants weekly. We do a lot of topics. It could range from anything. Like recently, we did a 3-part Rumi series, you could say, where we were just discussing quotes and ideas that Rumi shared. And then Yeah, and so far we have done around 150 sessions, and it's still going on. So we are the facilitators, and the wonderful thing is both Graham and Shaima, I met them during the empathy facilitator training, like that Edwin had organized early on. And so some of us, we got together and we kept it going. So I just wanted to share a few thoughts on what has really stood out for me personally in terms of the whole practice, and having facilitated like these circles for the last 3 years. The first thing is I was really surprised by the regular participation that we saw, because I would never have thought that it would go on for 3 years. It was supposed to be something very short, maybe for a few months around COVID, and then everyone goes back to their own lives. But people kept coming week after week, and that was quite stunning, a revelation for me. So the regular participation, in fact, we right now have participants even after 3 years who come regularly every week, right from the beginning, of the whole circles. And I think empathy circles, at least from my experience, have seen it have significant therapeutic benefits, right? We live in a quite, chaotic world, and especially in India here, therapy is quite expensive, and there are a lot of people who struggle and wish they could have safe spaces where they can have just be listened to and connect with other people. And that's something that empathy circles definitely provide. So the significant therapeutic benefits, peer learning. I can vouch for the fact that everyone in the group who regularly come will say that they've grown immensely over the last 3 years because of all the learning. Like it's especially peer learning. We learn so much from other people's experiences and sharing. And I've personally grown so much wiser, I would say, because of the empathy circles that we've been doing, and very strong friendships. We've had situations where people just travel. They, members from the group connect with each other when they are, in each other's cities. They hold meetups, they send me selfies, and we even have a small WhatsApp group for the regulars who kind of share. And by now it's more like we're family, right? And this is a space that everybody looks forward to just like coming back to every week. And collaborative project work. Here, I just wanted to mention something that one of our participants, like Arindam, he's from Kolkata in India, and we got together. Once when I visited Kolkata, I met him, and then we submitted an abstract to TESOL, which is a huge conference for English, language speakers and teachers. So in fact, our abstract was around empathy circles and how we could use the empathy circle process as a peer support mechanism for teachers, right? And it got accepted. So and it got accepted, and we've been invited to the conference in March in the US. We may or may not go because there's a lot of other stuff involved, but it's still a huge win, I would say, because it gives something like Empathy Circles a global platform. And at a huge conference which is attended by thousands and thousands of people. And then also effective handling of disagreements. I put it there because we've had situations where people in the group, like, we have disagreements with each other, we have problems with each other, but we still come back, right? And I think the structure of the empathy circle is such, I would say it really provides a sort of safety, and it just holds us in these difficult times. And so we've had a lot of difficult conversations happen through the process. And so that is testament to how powerful the circle is. And there are a few things we've tried to experiment with the structure. Like one of the things that we've started doing is we regularly have a centering practice at the beginning, right? And it goes for anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes, just to ground all the participants who come back, just to remind them about, how sacred a space this is, and stuff like that. And then we also tried, after a point, breaking the structure, because they were so what we've been trying to do is really listen to the participants, what they want, even topics. Sometimes we introduce topics which probably support them, because we know everybody by now really well. We all share everything that's happening in our lives. And so if someone's going through a work struggle, let's say, so we introduce a topic which really speaks to that, so that they also get some benefit out of the circle. So we do the structure, but maybe 3/4 of the time once we've done 3/4 of the time in the breakout room, we sometimes break the structure and have a free-flowing format of conversation on the topic. That's something we've been experimenting, and it's going really well. Flexible timing, again, I put it there because, sometimes people, we sense that someone in the breakout room is really, having an emotionally difficult time, and then we try to give them more space and more time, so it's basically just reading the room and trying to respect someone else who needs probably more time. So we're not too strict on the time there. So these are some things I've been experimenting with, and I thought it'll be wonderful to share it with you. And I wanted to end with this, and this is just an idea that I've had, something that I'm speaking to a lot of people within my small state, which is, Kerala, which is in the south of India. It's immensely powerful what Edwin clearly showed us how it all began, and the process is immensely powerful, and so this is something I may have shared this with you, Edwin, at some point, but I thought to make this work, like he said, this needs to be a global movement, and for that we need everybody collaboratively working for it. And so this is just building a hub and spoke model or a tiered representative model, I think will be wonderful, because I think this is the best way to kind of take it. I've seen so many other organizations do this, and I think why not? Why not the empathy circle? It's so powerful. So something like now that we have
Rasha. 1 minute, Rasha. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I have a timer here. I'm guessing everybody saw it. So yeah. This is the last slide. So the hub and spoke model, and so where we have the empathy center now at the top, and then maybe having country level spokes, and under them maybe state level representatives who then kind of have build hubs which are university specific or school specific, local level specific, and so I think that is one way to kind of just trickle this down to the very grassroots, and it could be a global movement, and so I'm mentioning this so that collectively, maybe if everyone's interested, we can together maybe work on something like this. So I just wanted to put this there. And yeah, and so as my time comes to an end, I just want to say gratitude, Edwin. Thank you so much. We love you so much for having, built this. Leader Vi, I'm thinking so fondly of her. I wish she was here. Very grateful to her, and to Lou, Bill, all the others here. So just wanted to mention that as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Rasha. Really appreciate you being here today. Lovely to meet you. So we now have the pleasure of listening to Lou Zweier. Lou has been working with Edwin for about 8 years. He is a current member of the Empathy Center Board of Directors, and is a former executive of the California State University System. Over to you, Lou. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So fun to go down the memory lane with Edwin of the origin of the Empathy Circle, and then listening to Rasha. I haven't seen Rasha in a really long time, so feeling a lot of joy right now. So I'm gonna, so I started doing Empathy Circle work with Edwin, I think in 2016, something like that. So I've been doing this a long time, and I also have a background in nonviolent communication and restorative circles, which Edwin mentioned both of those. And for the last 3+ years, I've been doing a public listening project in my hometown, which is Petaluma, California, where we do, usually in 4-week blocks, we do empathy circles, and people are invited from the public to come. We've had over 200 people, different people participate over time. And much like Rasha, we see people coming, repeatedly, and people really learning a lot from that experience. So what I'm going to share today, so when I was asked to talk, or when I thought about what would I want to talk about, as more and more people have learned empathy circle practice, and people are going off and doing different things with it, people are experimenting, like Rasha explained that she was experimenting with different, changing different parts of the structure, and that's fine. But what because I've been doing this a long time, and what I've seen is that it's amazing that the simple structure of the empathy circle produces kind of a magical result. It's very simple, but amazing things happen in it. And so I wanted to share my thoughts about the bits of structure that make up the circle and why I think they're important. So as people experiment and try different things, they don't throw out something that is important. And that doesn't mean that things can't change. People should experiment. But I just wanted to share my learning about what I think is really important about the different pieces of structure. So I've made up a couple of, I just have 2 slides, which are really meant to just help guide the things I want to say. So the first attribute of the structure, of empathy circle structure, that I think is important is mutuality. And I think, one of the things about the empathy circle, I say this often when I introduce it, is one of the things it does is it interrupts our bad habits of communication. That's one of the advantages of the structure. And mutuality in relating, in talking, and communicating is one of the things that if you kind of watch what happens between a pair of people, and more so even in a group of people, a small group of people, is mutuality does not happen naturally. What happens naturally is some people talk a lot, some people don't talk very much at all. And a lot of times one person or 2 people will dominate the conversation. And so mutuality is, I think, a really important attribute of the empathy circle. It ensures that everybody gets a chance to speak, and be heard for what's important to them, and including the facilitator. That the facilitator is also a participant. And so that kind of mutuality also flattens there's no hierarchy. It reduces the kind of hierarchy in the circle. So I think mutuality, the idea that everyone gets an equal chance to speak, I think that's really, really essential. And time turns, which is the second thing, that really helps support that. The fact that people are timed means a couple of things. It means, one, that everybody gets a roughly equal time to speak. It means that speakers who tend to tell a lot of stories or tend to go on and on, they get limited in what they are saying, and they learn to get to the point more quickly over time. It means that if somebody is saying something that's very difficult for people to hear, either the idea that they're expressing or the way they are communicating is offensive, or it's very hard to hear, it means there's going to be a limit on how much time people have to listen to that. And that makes it, more tolerable, knowing that there's a limit to how long this is going to go on. Makes it easier for people to tolerate listening to things that they disagree with or that they might be offended by. So time turns for that reason are really important. And it doesn't mean that I never, as a facilitator, that I never vary the time. I mean, if somebody, if a reflector is taking a really long time to reflect a speaker, I might give the speaker a little bit more time because they're not really getting a lot of, they're not having much time to speak. Okay, the third point is speaking freely. So I think it's a really important attribute of the circle that the instructions are to the speaker are say whatever you want. When it's your turn to speak, say whatever you want. And, this comes out of a lot of experience of mine of trying to teach communication skills to people, both nonviolent communication and other communication models. And when you give people a lot of rules for speaking, they have trouble saying what's important to them. Often when someone has something in them that's really important to them to say, there's usually a big emotional component to it. And when I'm feeling a lot of emotion, I'm not thinking very clearly. I can't be really careful about how I'm expressing myself when I'm feeling strongly about something. And so I think a great attribute of the empathy circle is that it's and others have said this, it's a free space. Speak however you want, say whatever it is you need to say, get it off your chest. And there's more focus on listening, not really trying to control the speaker, but trying to not control the listener, but that the power is in how we listen to what people are saying. What are we listening for? Maybe when I'm not listening for their judgments, I'm not listening for their bad language. I'm listening for, so why are they saying this? Why is it important to them? How are they feeling about what they're saying? And why is it important to them? And yeah, I think that's a really important attribute of empathy circles. So then the next is reflection. So if you watch what happens in normal conversation between two people or in a small group, reflection rarely happens. And often in empathy circle, when people are being reflected, people will say at the end of an evening, I don't think I've ever been listened to like this before. And it's because reflecting what people are saying is not a habit that people have. And so reflection lets the speaker feel heard. That's one reason it's really important. Another is that it slows down the conversation. So in terms of talking about things that are difficult or where people have big differences, slowing down the conversation is one of the main things that helps people hear each other across differences. Another aspect of reflection is that it interrupts what happens in normal conversation, which is someone will say something and then someone will object to it or challenge it in some way, asking questions or saying, no, this is my experience or something like that. And so then the speaker doesn't feel received. So part of the importance of reflection is for the speaker to feel received. Part of the importance of reflection
Lou.
is to slow the conversation down. And another part is for people to understand that listening is about understanding the other person, that's actually the purpose of listening, is to receive the other person. So I'm going to skip over silent listening and say that another important thing is that then the listener becomes the speaker. So because you've been doing the listening and you've been having to reflect, when you become the speaker, you're kind of empty. You haven't been sitting there thinking, oh, how am I going to contradict what they're saying? How am I going to respond to what they're saying? So there's a kind of emptiness that I think also changes the dynamic of the conversation.
And that's about time, Lou.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Well, it's fun sharing these insights with you. I hope they are a contribution. I hope they're helpful.
Thank you so much, Lou. So our next speaker is Janna Weiss. Janna has a PhD in ethnobotany and a deep commitment to social justice. Janna Weiss brings a unique perspective to the Empathy Summit. As a skilled facilitator and trainer, Janna guides participants in building stronger, more compassionate communities. Over to you, Janna. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Let's see. Oh, dear. Here we go. So this is not going to. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, the whole Empathy Summit, Bill, Lou, Cara, Jonathan, everyone, all the wonderful facilitators and participants. So my presentation is basically just gratitude and joy and a celebration of just some of the reach of this global empathic listening community. So building empathic community and empathy circles, superpower. Martin Luther King spoke of building a beloved community. I love this quote: those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war. War and peace don't look anything alike. Peace looks like empathy circles. And the more we do them, the more peace there will be in the world. But we're not stopping and we're not leaving out those who love war. We hope to reach 8 billion people, like Edwin said. It's for everyone, 100%, he said in his empathy tent. And I cannot sum up, over a decade of work of so many people, but recently in October, we had this beautiful Science of Empathy article that came out in Scientific American highlighting and featuring the empathy circle, mentioning Edwin and Lou. And here's some quotes from it. Empathy is a socially motivated process. Upholding empathy as a social norm motivates people to make the effort. In other words, if we are intending, motivated, have the goal or the purpose to be empathic and to be kind, we will create that world, and we can support each other in doing that. And the more we practice, the better we get at it. And if we don't support each other and we don't value empathy, then it's more difficult. And the empathy circle is, of course, the heart of this whole empathy movement for building a culture of empathy. Edwin used to hold cafes, empathy circle cafes, open circles where people can just talk freely. And now Bill and Jonathan are holding that space once a week on Thursday, where also new facilitators can practice their new skills. And there are all kinds of ways to introduce topics that I've experimented a little bit with, and I haven't used cards, but with books, videos, and cards. So empathy circles are very versatile. And the first book club that I participated in with Edwin and Joan, his partner, was the Democracy Circle, where we did 10 weeks for the 20 short chapters on tyranny by Timothy Snyder. And there was a suggested topic for each of the chapters. So there were 2 topics and whatever is alive in you. And DJ Chandler and Larry Lawhorn and I did this together in January when Marianne was still running for president. Marianne Williamson's book, A Politics of Love. We chose excerpts for each of 9 weeks. The book has 9 chapters, so people didn't have to read the book to participate in the empathy circle. You could just come, read the excerpt together. We had a question for each of the circles, and then and whatever is alive in you, whatever is on your heart and mind. And Larry is currently doing this reading group. It's not, he doesn't choose excerpts, but they're actually reading the whole book together. So part of the circle is reading the book, and then the empathy circle part is discussing whatever comes up for people as they're reading internal family systems with Schwartz. Larry and I did this together, an empathy circle, altruism empathy circle, using video. This video is 16 minutes long, so we chopped it up into 4-minute chunks. How to Let Altruism Be Your Guide by Matthew Ricard. It has at least 2.4 million views online. And we shared the transcript as well as watched the 4 minutes at the beginning of the circle. Felicia, I would love to do this with her. I don't know how she's using the cards, but she's doing Empathy Unchained. It's her book. And she has a conversation deck, and she's using that, she says, powered by empathy circles. And there's also in-person now. This is a breakout room in Santa Barbara. It's just gorgeous. And the before and the after of empathy circles. And the empathy circle facilitator training that Edwin mentioned. And we're reaching further into all kinds of communities. Tibetan monks made this beautiful sand mandala at the empathy center and did an empathy circle with Edwin, and you can watch the video. And also Tupten Tepo Tulku invited Edwin and the empathy tent team to set up an empathy tent at the Dalai Lama's birthday in Santa Barbara. And Extinction Rebellion has embraced empathy circles and offers empathy circles on the empathy circle calendar. Let's see. And when I saw that you could just put different content into empathy circles, I thought it would be really great to use with the 16 guidelines. I'm also an empathy 16 guidelines facilitator, and this is another global community of facilitators that practices universal human values. Wendy Wigley put together this PDF, and she suggested, instead of using the book 16 guidelines, to use this free PDF that the Foundation for Developing Compassion and Wisdom offers freely. And so we just read the excerpt for each of different values like kindness, respect, patience, honesty. And then there are conversation starters that we choose from those for the topics. And I want to thank Larry and Ruth, who have been doing these circles with me for the last 1.5 years. Empathy Matters, Larry has some circles that are not on the Google calendar, on the Empathy Circle calendar. So I'll just share that if you want to find out more about what he's doing, you can go to empathymatters.org. He's starting a Middle East situation circle, empathy circle with Valerie, and he's got red and blue concerns. And then Kathy and Edwin started organizing these large cafes, these events that are precursors to the Empathy Summit. And the first one that I participated in was Police to Peace with Lisa Broderick, who is the founder and director of Police to Peace, and Talk with the Cops. And that is the Empathy Cafe or Circle that was featured in the Scientific American article. And then the next one that was at the end of 2022 is with COPACE, the largest network of conflict transformation, peace building, and security experts worldwide, with 46,000 LinkedIn members. And there's Pascal Gemperle. He also presented at another summit on empathy trainings around the world that I'm not featuring here. And other organizations have joined, and recently International Listening Association invited Edwin, I know Jonathan went, to participate. The National Coalition on Dialogue and Deliberation, Listening First, Potluck Action have all been sponsors. So the first Empathy Summit was a co-creation of the Foundation for Developing Compassion and Wisdom. Those are the 16 guidelines, folks, with Edwin and Kathy from the Peace Alliance. And I'd also like to acknowledge, there were many speakers and it's impossible to acknowledge them all here. You can check out
Got 1 minute, Janna.
So Liz Gannon-Graydon is the president of the board chair of the Peace Alliance. So these were these invited speakers. So I'll just flip through these beautiful empathy summits that we've had, 44 authors, a series of 4 empathy circles, Empathy Summit, the DJs continued in the empathy circle. And Serafino Siniso has an empathy circle. All these are on the calendar, and I hope that we hear from them in the future. And please join us if you like empathy circles for the Empathy Circle Facilitator Training online. I think that's, do I have time? That also features a buddy call. Once a week, we do one-on-one active listening with buddies. So in the course of several trainings or many trainings, you get to actually grow and meet a lot of people. And it's very, very precious. So thank you so much to everyone.
Janna, thank you so very much. Always a pleasure. I shall now pass the baton to Cara Jean Wilson. Cara Jean Wilson, she will be hosting the second half of these presentations. Cara Jean Wilson is an executive leadership coach and visionary entrepreneur on a mission to redefine leadership through empathy and sustainability. As co-host of the Empathy Summit, Cara leverages her extensive experience in cultivating human-centered connections to empower leaders in creating impactful, community-driven change. Cara has been working to build a culture of empathy for over 4 years with Edwin Rutsch. Over to you, Cara. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. I am so excited for who we have coming up next. It is my honor to welcome Anita Nowak, who I have had the pleasure of working with Anita before on another summit. So I'm so excited to have her back. She's a faculty member of the McGill Executive Institute. She has done multiple TEDx stages. She's a podcaster and author of Purposeful Empathy, tapping into our hidden superpowers for personal, organizational, and social change. Today, she's going to talk about empathetic listening for inner development and outer impact. Anita, I'm so excited to give you the stage.
Thank you, Cara, and thanks to seeing so many familiar faces that have stayed committed to this movement for so long. It's wonderful, wonderful. So yes, thank you for that very generous and warm introduction. I've got some slides that I'm going to share as well. So let me just take us there. Yeah, so I thought we would dive into why empathic listening and empathy circles are so important to the inner development that's needed for the outer impact that the world needs, and that I would share some of my learning as I've gone on my journey to bring empathy circles into the workplace where leaders can deploy empathic listening more carefully. So I discovered a couple of years ago the inner development goals. If you haven't been onto their website, I really encourage everyone to do a Google search. I was at their conference 2 years ago, and I was really caught by a bio statement, "The times are urgent. Let's slow down." It sounds like a paradox, but when you lean into the IDG framework, you realize that that's exactly what we need. So I want to frame my talk with a model at the beginning and a framework at the end to provide context. So we've probably all heard of the UN Sustainable Development Goals that were launched in 2015. We had a 15-year runway with them, and it's really to help kind of lift people out of global poverty, help mitigate against climate change, gender equality, all the things that keep us up at night. And the idea was that the world would sign on to these SDGs, and that by 2030, we would see some major progress. Sadly, it's 2024, we have 6 years to go, and we've only achieved 12% of the goals. So a group in Stockholm actually got together and said, what do we need from leaders in order to achieve those goals? And through quite a process, bringing some thought leaders around systems change together, they launched the Inner Development Goals. And so I just came back from their third annual conference, and you can see that empathy and compassion are very important goals, or very important skills. These are a set of 23 skills that leaders should be developing in order to be the kind of leaders that we need to, address some of the problems that face the world. So the SDGs are the external challenges, and the IDGs are inner capabilities, right? So when I think about leaders in the workplace, it's quite fascinating to me that 84% of CEOs understand how important empathy is, including to their bottom line, but 7 out of 10 fear showing empathy in the workplace because they're worried they're going to be less respected if they do it. But, somebody like Satya Nadella, who runs Microsoft, said, it's not a soft skill. Empathy is the hardest skill we'll ever learn. And I think that the empathy practice, empathic listening and the empathy circles, is a practice to develop that skill. Now, when we are feeling emotionally connected to someone, our brain lights up the pleasure and reward centers of our brain. It feels good to our body. We all know that feeling. But when we're feeling empathy fatigue, guess what happens? Our brain cannot be in a state of empathy. We cannot extend empathy when we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed ourselves. So usually when I talk about empathic leadership and how to deploy empathy in the workplace, I'll use a little example. So this guy's yelling at, let's say, this woman in the white blouse with the bun, and she leaves the meeting and she's feeling terrible about herself. And then she gets a knock on the door at her office saying, "Hey, Helen, do you have a minute?" And she's stressed out herself, having been through some kind of really terrible meeting. And now she's expected to show up with empathy. How can she do that, right? So I usually talk about a 6-step process, and then I'm going to go deep into one and end with why empathy circles are so powerful to develop that particular step. So I say usually Helen goes back to her office, she gets the knock on the door, and she's expected to show up with empathy, but she's stressed out herself. So the first step is to know that she's stressed, right? To just pay attention to what her body is saying. Maybe her cheeks are flushed. Maybe she's feeling butterflies in her stomach. Maybe her heart rate is racing. So to have some self-awareness that she's feeling stressed out in the first place. In order for step 2 to happen, which would be self-regulation, how do you take that high level of stress down a few notches? How do you flip into the parasympathetic nerve system? And that's through maybe perhaps some breathing exercises. You could do some box breathing. Nobody needs to know it, but just to sort of take down your level of stress. The third step I call bridge crossing, which is really a simple step of making the decision to leave your frame of reference and to meet somebody where they're at. So let's say the person knocks on the door and says, "Helen, do you have a minute?" And that person is Peter. And he's like, "I need to take some time off because we're moving my mom into a elder care home because she has early stage dementia. And I need to take a couple of days off. It's the worst possible timing. I know we have this major client deliverable, but Helen's deciding to cross the bridge and not freak out about what's going to happen with her team, but to show up for Peter. In that moment, she needs to do some cognitive empathy, some perspective taking, some active listening. And this is where the empathy circle process helps us. So I'm going to come back to this slide in a minute. The fifth step is to take the empathic action once Helen's heard from Peter. This is not the moment to say, hey, let's take out our agenda and let's reconfigure the workflow. This is the moment to really extend empathy to Peter and say, how are you going to take care of yourself? Sounds like you're going through a lot. When you're ready, come back and see me and let's talk about the workflow. That empathic action will go a long way to increasing engagement. And then the sixth step, which a lot of leaders forget, is the self-empathy. You know, Helen had a tough meeting, then she's had this tough conversation, and then usually she'll go back to her emails when in fact she might want to take a beat and take care of herself in important ways. So as I said, I want to focus on the fourth step because that's, I think, where rubber hits the road. Empathy circles are so important to develop the skill of sitting with someone and allowing them to share and to provide, so I usually call them the two golden rules of perspective taking in a scenario like this. One is to really hold space and allow silence, to be more comfortable, not to be allergic to silence. The second thing is the skill of repeating back some of what you just heard, because when somebody is speaking and hears back the words that they've just spoken, they really feel heard. So I think, if we're going to be a leader that's extending empathy in our workplace, the capacity that we build through empathy circling is really, really, really important. So why do empathy circles matter so much? Well, precisely, our brains have been formulated, have been designed to listen, to respond, right? When we hear somebody talking to us, we're quick to respond, and especially if our emotions are triggered. But we really need to learn how to listen, to understand. And that's why I think empathy circles as a practice is so important. I remember in the beginning training, I remember thinking, what a cognitive weight. It was so hard to spend an hour and a half listening to understand and reflect back. It takes a lot of work to do. And then with practice, you get better at it. And I said that I would bookend the talk with a framework. So I want to end with two final slides. I think empathy really is really important for the world. We know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that he said self-actualization is the most important thing that we'll achieve as an individual. But in fact, he also said that self-transcendence is more important than self-actualization. And I think empathy and empathizing with others is a road to self-transcendence. Thank you.
Anita, you are amazing. Thank you so much for bringing that to us. I love the internal development goals. Already going to be Googling that. If nobody else is doing that, go ahead. I'll chat for just a second. And now it is time to bring up our next speaker. I'm delighted to bring up Maria Ross. Maria is a speaker, author, leadership trainer, podcaster, and empathy advocate who has spent decades helping forward-thinking teams connect and engage through empathy to accelerate growth. Her newest book, The Empathy Dilemma: How Successful Leaders Balance Performance, People, and Personal Boundaries. And today she's going to talk to us about the role that empathy circles play in the corporate environment. Take it away, Maria.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen really quickly, and you'll have to let me know if you can see what's happening here. I'm going to try to play this from the start. Oh, okay. Can everyone see my slides? Can I have a thumbs up? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for that great introduction. Thank you so much, Edwin and team, for inviting me to another great Empathy Summit. I really appreciate it. Yes, I recently published my second book on empathy called The Empathy Dilemma: How Successful Leaders Can Balance Performance, People, and Personal Boundaries. And in that one, I provide a framework that offers leaders 5 pillars that they can shore up for themselves in order to be both empathetic and high performing. And that's really the crux of my work, is to help organizational leaders who might think they don't have time for this whole empathy thing to understand that it's not a question of empathy or performance, empathy or accountability, or even empathy and their own personal boundaries, right? We've got to get rid of the binary thinking and focus on both and leadership. And my work is about curating the data and the research for these leaders to say, these are examples of people that are doing this. These are examples of organizations that are doing that, to get the skeptics to understand that, yes, empathy does have a place, even in corporate life, even in business, even in a place that's so driven by performance and results. And I'm trying to help them understand that balancing accountability and organizational performance and creating a thriving, empathetic culture at the same time is entirely possible. What I do is I help them understand that empathy is more about mutual understanding and support than it is about acquiescence. So what I like to say is empathy is about connection, not conversion. And usually when I say that is when I bring up Edwin and the empathy circles and introduce the practice to groups I'm talking to in keynotes, groups I'm talking to in leadership trainings. I even do sort of a speed example of an empathy circle with two people in the room of my workshop to get them to understand how hard it is, like Anita was saying, to flex that active listening muscle. I was exhausted after my first empathy circle because it is really hard to focus on someone else and, as Lou said, interrupt those bad habits that we have. So I also like to define empathy for these leaders and help them understand that it's not about crying on the floor with their employees, that empathy can take a lot of different forms, and it also looks different depending on the person. Based on neurodiversity, we express empathy and we practice empathy in different ways, but being willing and able to see, understand, and where appropriate, feel another person's perspective, and further use that information to take an action, which is compassion. That action could be active listening. That action could be a hug. That action could be giving someone the day off. That action could be possibly modifying a decision because of something you didn't realize before, because now you're being empathetic and you're listening and you're hearing a different point of view. So helping them understand that, and also helping them understand what it's not. It's not about being nice. You can be really nice, but it doesn't mean you're seeing my point of view and that I feel seen, heard, and listened to. It's not about caving into unreasonable demands, which is usually what makes leaders in all those studies think that it doesn't have a place in the workplace. They think it means that when someone tells me they don't like something, I have to change my mind. I have to change the business decision. And this is, again, this idea of it's not agreeing with someone. And this is once again where I bring up Edwin and the empathy circles and the work that has been done, especially at the most divisive political rallies. The goal is not necessarily to convert someone to your ideology. The goal is to listen and understand someone's context and where they're coming from. And I still may not agree with you, but now I have a better understanding of why you think or believe the way you do. And that's where we can embrace our common humanity. So why is empathy at work so hard? We've got generational clashes. We've got 5 generations working in the workforce at the same time who don't understand each other. And it's not right or wrong ways of doing things. They're just different. We have diversity conflicts. When we bring lots of people with different life experiences and points of view, and we put them in a room, if we don't have empathy fueling the interaction, it's just a bunch of people who don't understand each other. And then this idea of weaponized empathy that I talk about, which is only outliers, which are really gaming the system to use someone's empathy against them. It doesn't happen often, but I do like to alert executives to that. So Edwin asked me to actually be a little bit of a devil's advocate today and talk about how empathy circles can be used effectively in the workplace and where they may not be effective, where they might not be the only modality we want to engage in. So where it's effective is obviously we can practice active listening. To Anita's point, my first 2 pillars are self-awareness and self-care. And when we can actually work on our own stuff and practice active listening, we can learn to reflect back, listen to understand rather than listen to speak. And that is also great for conflict resolution, right? You're a leader, you've got 2 people on your team who don't get along, get them in a room and facilitate an empathy circle. so that they can hear each other. It's really effective for ensuring that everyone feels seen and heard. So provide that space where people can share their stories, their perspectives, or their feedback in a safe, supportive environment without interruption or judgment. I think of a lot of brainstorming meetings, for example, that could really benefit from using a structure like an empathy circle so that everyone can be heard, everyone can have equal airtime, everyone can have those moments to actively listen to all ideas, but also share their ideas in a free-flowing form of information. Part of one of the pillars of being an effective and empathetic leader is being able to synthesize multiple points of view and then make a decision. An empathy circle is a great way to unearth those multiple points of view. And again, gathering fair and free-flowing input, kind of related. But again, the leaderly aspect of this is that you get all that information and then you've got to forge ahead. So what I try to tell people is that letting go of your ego and being curious enough to learn and grow is a sure sign that you're tapping into your empathy. And I really believe that empathy circles make us let go of our ego and train us and painfully flex that muscle to let go of our ego and to actively listen. But when do we need to think beyond empathy circles? Interaction prompts innovation and innovative decision-making. So when we're not able to respond and add to what someone else is saying or doing, we can't move the ball forward, because clarity doesn't come from having the right answer. It comes from asking the right questions. And there is a limitation with empathy circles in that you can't ask follow-up questions to the person so that you can then get information and move forward. It's also that effective feedback loops do require back and forth. Performance reviews, product design, customer advisory boards. We must be able to offer encouragement and ask clarifying questions. So in that area, it might not be the most effective way to get the information. And also, we often require response and support. We want validation, we want comfort, we want advice sometimes. One thing I tell leaders, and I'll end with this, is that when someone comes to your office and wants to talk about something, maybe they're venting, maybe they're angry, maybe they're upset, ask them in an empathetic way, do you want me to see this problem and just recognize you? Do you want me to solve it and offer you some advice? Or do you just need me to support you? And then allow the person to set the tenor of the conversation. And that's, again, if you are trained in empathy circles, you are much better able to do this, but you also are sometimes required to give a response and give advice. So in summary, they're powerful, but in some places you do need some other modalities. And I just want to thank you all for your time today. Hope you'll check out the book, and I hope you'll check out the podcast, The Empathy Edge, where we did feature Edwin a few years ago and probably need to have him back again.
Yes. Thank you, Maria. That was amazing. It's connection, not conversion. And it's not about right or wrong. It's about the difference. Love that. Okay, next up is Bill Filler. I am so excited. It has been my honor to work with Bill in the Empathy for several years. He is a retired special education leader and teacher who has worked with at-risk children of all ages for over 30 years, and he has been involved with the Empathy Circle since 2017. He co-created the Empathy Circle facilitator training with Lou and Edwin and has been holding training since March of 2020. He's a member of the Empathy Center Board of Directors, and today Bill is going to talk to us about the experimental nature of empathy circles. Take it away, Bill.
Sure. And the experiential nature. First of all, I didn't get the memo about the slides, so I apologize for that. But what you can see back here is a kind of an artist kind of filter of my class going to the beach. And as a special education teacher, this was sort of like a high point of my career, where kids can just go and have fun and be themselves. One of the epiphanies I had as a special education teacher is that I dealt with suicidal adolescents, kids and families in crisis, kids who are in danger of going to prison. And so many times they would do an impulsive, violent act, throw a book or something like that. And my epiphany is that afterwards, the leader, of our team sat us down and said, okay, what's the communicative intent of that act? And in the moment, it just seems spontaneously or on, who knows. But then when you dug deeper and we did our homework, we found out that they hadn't been fed. They saw a violent something. And when you could address that feeling and also meet it, not just say, oh, I hear you're hungry, and then leave it at that. When you hear you're hungry and then get them something to eat, then they started to believe in the power of their words. And so they started to, then the violence went down precipitously. And then when I went out to Berkeley one day, I saw Edwin and this wonderful process. And so I felt that that's really what the world needs. Much of what's written about empathy, defining it, how its practice can make you a better partner, boss, coworker, and group member, etc. A lot of things like that. And those are great. They're valuable information that can have a positive impact in our lives. Many times, however, the mode of delivery relies on a download of information from the instructor to the pupil. Beyond its simple rules, the empathy circle seeks to create an experience of empathy created by two major dynamics: the experience of being heard and understood, and providing that experience for others. The empathy circle, when it's working, gives participants a felt empathic experience. This is not meant to denigrate the cognitive empathy, but once you experience empathy, it grounds the cognitive information and enhances one's understanding. Edwin Rutsch, the creator of the empathy circle process, talks about empathy circles being a basic practice that can be expanded on. The reason why the empathy circle is such a good place for one to start their empathic journey was backed up by research in an article by Elizabeth Svoboda in September's Scientific American, which Janna also referenced. It is titled, "Being Empathetic is Easier When Everyone's Doing It." She cites studies that show that people can understand intellectually how to empathize, but will not always choose to do it. The environment that creates and perpetuates a culture of empathy happens when people are practicing it and modeling it daily. The reason the empathy circle experience is so powerful is that you experience it with other people. So that incorporates that community experience. It is this practice with others that creates the broad base from which to embark on your empathic heroes or heroines journey. So why does a simple practice that provides the feeling of being heard provide such a significant experience for people of different ages, ethnicities, and religions? When we speak of building a culture of empathy, we refer to our common humanity. When we experience that sense of being heard and listening with other people, we are acknowledging a commonly held, deep-seated need for connection. Michelangelo was once asked how he transformed a lump of rock into a sculpture such as the David. He replied that he saw the image within the rock, and he simply chipped away at everything that was not David. In my experience, that is the same function of the empathy circle practice, to create an environment that eliminates much of the trauma and social conditioning so that each person can experience their inner empath. Once you've encountered this inner empathic self, you feel empowered, skillful, independent, while still deepening your connection with others. The path towards expanding realization of our connection to our family, town, country, species, and even the entire living world is as varied as each person that attends a circle. The rules have a simple goal: to let all the participants in the circle be heard and understood. Once that has occurred, it is up to each of us as to how we continue our empathic journey. Practicing empathic listening in more circles is one way that I recommend. What goes into the two dynamics that I mentioned of being heard and providing the experience for others? It's more complex than can be explained in this short talk, but we can describe some major components. The first component is the absence of judgment. Other than the empathy circle structure, we don't have any other directions. We accept people as they are. This is usually the first thing that a person new to the circle experiences. When they speak, they find that the reflector doesn't criticize, agree, relate a similar experience, but just tries to understand. Think of the last time that someone listened to you solely with the intent of trying to understand you. It's a rare experience. We relate this to our value of openness. The second component is the equal time given for all to speak. This creates a sense of equality and community. A circle participant doesn't have to assert themselves to be heard. They will get several chances guaranteed. People love to be heard, but equally powerful is giving the experience of being heard to another. This is related to our value of mutuality. The third component is when the facilitator makes adaptations within the structure of the circle practice to enable everyone to be heard. Everyone brings their own set of strengths and challenges to the circle. Individuals can be dealing with illness, trauma, language barriers, and even technical issues, among others. A good facilitator will try to accommodate challenges into the circle to give as many people as possible the feeling of being heard. This relates to our value of care. Put all these values together, and you get our value of empathy. The empathy circle is a dynamic experience that defies strict definitions. We do not seek adherents, but co-creators who enjoy the feeling of empathy in themselves and want to help to create a culture based on mutual respect and understanding. One comment that indicated to me that a person had an iconic empathy circle experience was something a newcomer said. She said, "I wasn't told what to do or what to think, but I feel more connected and relaxed." And that is my wish for us all. Thanks.
That was incredible. Thank you, Bill. Golly, we have the best people here, don't we? All right, next up is another one of our amazing humans. Rob Volpe is an empathy activist, author, and the award-winning book, Tell Me More About That, Solving the Empathy Crisis One Conversation at a Time. Today, Rob is going to explain where active listening fits on the way to reaching empathy and how empathy circle skills can help you get there. Take it away, Rob.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Apologies. I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm not sure what my voice is going to do. Hopefully you can see my slides. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you seeing the presentation or are you seeing my notes?
Now we just see the presentation.
Perfect. That's what I want. So, hello, I'm Rob Volpe, empathy activist. I'm also the founder of Ignite 360, which is a consumer insights research firm, now part of Dig Insights out of Toronto. I've been accused throughout my life of being a master storyteller and an acute observer of human life. And I think that acute observer is really listening in various forms for people. And that's part of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm based in San Francisco, where I live with my husband and our 3 cats, Domino, Barnabas, and Solitaire, and I always introduce them when I'm doing virtual because inevitably one of them at least wants to show up and cuddle while I'm talking on a presentation. But as Cara mentioned, I'm the author of Tell Me More About That, Solving the Empathy Crisis, One Conversation at a Time. So I wanted to start, I'm going to get into talking about how I share listening and how it fits into the 5 steps to empathy. But first wanted to give you guys a little bit of background information. I think everybody on this call would agree that there's an empathy crisis going on. We saw Edwin's slide earlier about the issues and what President Obama said during the campaigning about the empathy deficit. But there's actual real data to this. I know Anita mentioned it. Maria's got some great stats. But coming out of the State of Workplace Empathy Study this year, found that 67% of employees will work longer hours for an empathetic employer. So anytime somebody is saying to you, well, what's the benefit of empathy? Here you go. You've got employees that are going to work harder, work longer for you if you are empathetic in return. Additionally, 88% of employees say that they're going to stay at an empathetic company. So you're going to have less turnover. That's a really good thing because turnover is very disruptive to your business and it actually costs you a lot of money. However, being empathetic is challenging 42% of employees say that they struggle to be empathetic, and it's an even higher number. I think Anita mentioned some of the CEO numbers. It's even higher the further up you go in an organization. So there's a struggle to be empathetic, and I liked how Maria was talking about the importance of the way that empathy and listening in particular shows up and can show up in the workplace. But empathy, what's so critical, this is really fun. I've got a TV appearance on Monday morning, so that's going to be really interesting. Empathy empowers the skills we need to be the people that we are and hope to become. And there's Domino right on cue. So empathy, the thing people get confused about with empathy, it's like, okay, I've got empathy, great. Now what do I do with it? And that's exactly the thing. Like, you use empathy for all these other skills to communicate, collaborate, solve problems, persuade, make decisions, ideate, trust, reach forgiveness, and have compassion. And those in turn make you better in whatever role you're playing at work as well as in your personal life. And so my book and the talks that I give and the training is all around the 5 steps to empathy. And the 5 steps, and we've heard a few different frameworks, and all of them are correct. Empathy is such a complicated topic, and it involves how we show up as people. I took the perspective of looking at, like, what are the barriers people are having in the moment when they're trying to reach somebody else? What are the things that they need to overcome? And I'm going to grab that meowing cat. Here's Domino for everybody to see. So there's 5 steps. The first one is to dismantle judgment. This one tends to be the biggest and the hardest, and gets in most people's way. The second one is that you need to ask good questions. And then, and here it is, active listening, or you need to actively listen. So critical. And I'm going to talk about how I'm going to share how I talk about active listening in particular. The 4th step is integrate into understanding you're hearing all these different things, and you've got to make room in your head and be open and be curious to understand what somebody else is saying and recognize that they may have a viewpoint that's different from yours, and that's okay. And then the 5th step is use solution imagination. So that's then taking the things that you're learning and starting to put it into action, and further the conversation to reach those goals that you're trying to achieve. So when you talk about active listening, what I really like people to really consider is, it's that making that conscious effort to stay focused during an interaction. We've all heard different speakers talk about how exhausting an empathy circle, especially the first time, is. And it does take a conscious effort, even if you're just having a regular phone call. And I like to point out that we get easily distracted. We shift our attention away. Usually, I try to draw references for people about, how many Zoom calls it might be happening right now, where somebody's on this webinar, they're listening, but they're also doing their email or their social media or their other things. And it's easy for us to get distracted. Even if we're having a one-on-one with somebody, you've got your phone open or you've got something else on the screen. So you really need to try to stay focused. And we all listen, but it's different when we choose to listen and concentrate solely on the speakers. So when I'm giving a talk to a large or small group, I'm really trying to get them to understand that need to focus and concentrate. And I'll often do a little empathy circle-like exercise if there's time. Because if we're willing to listen long enough and well enough, that's how we truly understand other people. And that's how we're able to then get into those later steps and use solution imagination and try to come to a positive resolution. A few tips that I recommend for people is also, it's not just the things that you're hearing, but it's the nonverbal gestures, the postures, or the movements. So sometimes it's about, like, hi, I've got a cat pacing back and forth. That's going to indicate that I might be a little distracted, and you want to be listening for those things. Or if you're in somebody's office or you're in somebody's house, paying attention to the other things that are happening. And then whatever the classic nonverbal gestures or movements might be, are their arms crossed, and does that indicate defensiveness? Or something else, and pick up on those things, and don't be afraid to talk to that. Something similar, and empathy circles, I think, are a good practice for this, is following your speaker's lead. So while in the traditional empathy circle, you're not having a direct Q&A, But you can, when you're in conversation, though, pick up on those questions, use the words that they're using to show that you're interested and to help you maximize the information that you're hearing. So you want to be able to use similar language. I think Anita pointed out that when somebody is being heard, it's hitting in a very different place. And ultimately, all we are looking for as humans is to be seen, heard, and feel validated that we have value on this planet. And then again, be present. If the mind wanders, always bring yourself back. I talk a lot about having grace with yourself and with other people, and this is kind of along those lines. And then we'll do an exercise, and this is, I'll introduce the idea of an empathy circle, and depending on the size of the group and the timing, we'll get into engaging in a conversation. And really, the essence of the empathy circle is about, and what's so powerful, is that repeating back that point of view. And so having somebody repeat it back, but I also like to, I spend time talking about empathetic language. So what are some phrases that people can use that help people understand that you're connecting and hearing? And I always tell people, like, you need to find the language that's right for you and what you're comfortable with. But a few things that I might say, I might start with, I can imagine how you feel. You feel XYZ, and I repeat exactly what they say, or I can see your point of view. And so while you're stating what you've heard in the way that you heard it, which that's coming off the empathy circle, and then ask them to confirm if you reflected it back to them correctly. And I have that little, if you want to double click, go visit the empathycircles.com website to learn more. And so at times we will have some engagement where I will have people model if we've got time in a workshop. But if I'm up on a bigger stage, it's usually just the example of it, and people start to get it because it is a really critical step to having empathy. So that's how I approach and where I see listening fitting into the 5 steps to empathy. It's the third step. I didn't intentionally put it in third, but it's in the middle, and probably because of the importance that it has. But you've got to be able to dismantle your judgment. You've got to be asking the right questions. And then making room in your head that there's different ways to do that. That QR code takes you to, I think, my website. I would love to connect with you further, reach out, connect on the socials. I've got some content coming out later this weekend about how to have conversations with people the morning after the election and whatever is going to happen here. And I know that's an area we're all struggling with right now.
Rob, thank you so much. If you have not had an opportunity to connect with Rob Volpe, you are making a mistake, and go make sure you got that QR. He's fantastic. Up next is Bob Brown. Bob Brown is a pilgrim of the spirituality journey. For years, he has hosted an empathy tent in Thousand Oaks, California, and offered empathetic listening. Today, he is going to talk to us about why empathy circles are so effective. Take it away, Bob.
Cara, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for being here. And we have Life by PowerPoint. There we go. Edwin asked me to talk about why empathy circles are so effective. So here are my ideas. We've heard many names today about psychology. So let's take a minute to sort of establish what your psychology might be from the past. Maybe a teacher or an expert or a psychologist that you respect and learn a lot from. Here's mine. There are 8 basic human needs: survival, security, affection, esteem, approval, pleasure, power, and control. And it's human nature for me to believe that I'm being shortchanged in satisfying at least one of my basic needs. And in response, I overcompensate by making one or more of these needs an energy center that requires my utmost attention and becomes my reason for living. For many of us, it turns into an addiction, and I become self-centered instead of other-centered. When I take part in an empathy circle, I know that somebody connects with what I'm going through. I know that I'm not alone. I can relax a little. Being in an empathy circle promotes healthy brain chemistry and a harmonized heart electromagnetic field. These phenomena can empower me to take a closer look at what gives my life meaning. I can understand that in the long run, self-centeredness doesn't work. As many people have pointed out this morning, there are 8 billion of us on the planet, and it's pretty easy to see what happens when self-centeredness is the dominant motivation. When someone comes to an empathy circle for the first time and asks, "What's an empathy circle?" I say it's a place where you can talk about what's on your mind and what's in your heart. In the empathy circle, I can choose to be honest and vulnerable in a safe environment. After experiencing an empathy circle, I can then take advantage of the freedom which the universe grants me, as well as everybody else. I can use my freedom to focus not on what's in it for me, but to focus on what's in it from me. There is something mysterious about the empathy circle. When we know that we're being listened to without judgment, we can choose to discover new potentialities that help us to become better people. Things like consciousness, the unconscious, collective consciousness, the collective unconscious, the chakras, mysteries like Kundalini yoga. These 2 gray boxes are a bit tangential from our main topic. However, empathy often is an important first step that empowers us to listen in the silence for the deepest wisdom. We can look for new ways to play an important part in the human adventure. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. This book, Listening Well, The Art of Empathic Understanding by William R. Miller, was our text when I took the course from Edwin and Bill and Lou. And I continue to believe that this is the standard text that helps us recognize and maximize our empathic instinct. I hope that everyone takes more advantage of the opportunities offered by the Empathy Center. Thank you, Edwin, for all you do for humanity and the planet. And thanks to everyone here for everything we all do that help Edwin in this great, great mission. And here's where I can be getting emails from, and peace be with you.
Rob, you're wonderful. Or Bob, you're wonderful. Thank you so much. Bob, hi. Annette Dubreui. Did I get that right? Annette Dubreui is an embodied creative facilitator who will be speaking with us next. She is coach and focuses on and a focusing teacher for people who want to transform themselves and change the world to make it more caring and flourishing. Today, she's going to be talking about adding focusing to empathy circles. Take it away, Annette.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to begin by speaking a bit about focusing so you know what it is, and we'll do a little experience of it. And before I say what it is, just wanted to say it's also something connected to Carl Rogers that we heard a lot about today. So the creator of focusing, Eugene Genlin, he was a student of Carl Rogers as well back in the day. So I'm going to share my screen and say a little bit about focusing. So first, I would like to say that Eugene Genlin, he says he discovered or created this practice of focusing, that it was something that he was naturally seeing people doing, and that the people who did this embodied practice they were really having change in their therapy. And so he came up with a 6-step or 6-movement way to understand focusing. And it's really about being in the body. And in fact, well, I'll get to that. So first, 2 conditions and 4 moves. So I like using the metaphor of dancing to explain this practice. And so, as you know, when we're dancing, we need some sort of space, maybe a dance floor or your kitchen floor. It can be formal or informal. And for us in focusing, it's about having some space in the body, feeling grounded and centered and present. And then you usually have music when you're dancing, and that can be in your head, or it could be an actual, a band or something like that. And for focusing and being embodied and connected to empathy, that's our heart energy. And so we call that clearing a space. There's different ways of doing that to come into the body. And then activating heart energy really helps with this way of being receiving or welcoming, which some of you have already alluded to with being non-judgmental, right? This kind of 2 sides of the same coin. And then once we're in the body in this way, then we can listen to our body wisdom. And Jenlin, I call these the dancing moves, the things we can do once we're in the body. So he called it the felt sense. And the felt sense is primarily physical sensations. And then once you have that, it can turn into something. And he called that a handle. And getting a handle on something is getting the word or the image, something that really captures what that physical sensation is wanting you to know. And Jenlin called that felt sense the client's client. So Carl Rogers said, pay attention to the client. Jenlin said, pay attention to the client's client. Pay attention to what your body is telling you at the physical level. And this practice, by doing that, it's like an embodied thinking. It brings us, Jenlin would say, halfway down, right? So we're not so oriented by the ego. We're allowing the embodied knowing to come through, which is more connected to our soul and the self-transcendence we heard about earlier. So as we do that, there's a resonating piece, which is just checking, is your body going, yes, you're getting the message? Or is it going, close, but not quite, and you want to stay longer? And then when we do this practice, sometimes the body has more to say, and we have a whole host of questions to bring us deeper. So what I'm going to invite us to do is a little practice of it, because really, to know what the felt sense is, you need to experience it. So I'm going to invite you to just for a moment, notice your body, and it might want to move or stretch. We've been sitting for nearly 2 hours, so I'll just invite you to do that for a moment. And maybe sigh, or I think all muted. Maybe taking a few slower breaths, extending your exhale especially. And then if you're comfortable, either closing your eyes or maybe lowering your gaze. And I'll invite you to feel your feet on the floor, if that's where they are, your sit bones on your chair. We're creating that calm space in the body. And then I'll invite you to place one hand on your heart space, and then I like the other hand on the cheek, kind of on the jawline. And you can kind of lean over, kind of holding your vagus nerve and your other nerves that connect to your social engagement system. Some self-care here. And then inviting you to do some heart breathing. So this is where we imagine breathing in and out of the heart space. Imagining the breath comes in through the heart and comes back out through the heart. Do a few more like that. And then you can stay that way. You might lower your hands. And I'm going to invite you to imagine that you get a knock at the door. And you open the door, and one of your favorite people that you haven't seen in a while is there. Maybe it's an elder, a favorite aunt or uncle, or a favorite friend who's surprising you. They're from out of town, something like that. A favorite person is just there at your door. And you just take a moment to land on who it is, and maybe for a moment know why you like them so much. And then I'm going to invite you to see what's happening in your body. Where do you feel physical sensations? And it might be in your heart space, or it might be somewhere else, and you might see if the sensations have a size or a shape, or maybe they're moving or still. Maybe they have a color or a texture. And then I'm going to invite you to ask your body for a word or a phrase or an image that captures this feeling you have in your body now that you're noticing about this friend or person that you are surprised to have at your door right now. How do you feel about them? And it might come as a metaphor or an image, and sometimes it can be tricky to do this. So you could ask it maybe to come as a body of water, right? Somebody you love a lot. Maybe it feels like a kid jumping in a puddle, or maybe it feels like a sparkling lake, maybe like a rainbow in a waterfall. Just checking if one of those resonates, or something else that came from your body. You might notice a little shift when you get something. Okay, so I'm going to invite you to gently round that off. And if you'd like, you can put what you got in the chat. What the image or word was of that person being at your door, how it feels in your body. And just give folks a moment to do that. So we have joy, happy, openness and warmth, calm, very calm, peaceful, like a warm bath. Filled with light, life and love, relieved, compassionate embrace, being held in love. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing. So, so focusing, as you saw, is a 6-step practice. It's also a peer-to-peer practice. It can also be done in therapy. So there's many ways of practicing it. And there's been a few innovations in it. Janet Klein created interactive focusing, where after listening to somebody, we pause and sense into the body what we have. So it's like what we just did, but you would do it on what the person said and see what comes. And I was also influenced to share one more by Theory U, Otto Scharmer's work in the Presencing Institute. They do something called case clinics or coaching circles, where during a session, it's one person who would have a turn, and then people would offer their reflections. And so the various ways I've experimented with bringing focusing into empathy circles is at our changes groups. So the focusing community has these ways of coming together and practicing in groups of 2 or 3. And we started doing bigger groups where usually 2 or 3 people would have a turn to share. So rather than having rounds, we would have 1 round per person who were sharing, and then whoever wanted to give an empathic reflection could do so. And then we started doing empathy circles that way on a specific topic. So there was that common humanity piece of sharing similar things connected to a specific topic. I'm just going to put some resources in the chat that connect to those. And then more recently, Edwin co-hosted with me. We did a little empathy circle your way, and bringing more felt sensing, focusing the felt sense into the practice. So there's different ways to do this. You can be more on the focusing side or more on the round side, and blend it in different ways. And the main thing is letting that body wisdom have a bit more say, and bringing those pauses in, right? We can just pause at any point and just notice, oh, was there something there in the body, which allows that higher self to come out a little bit more and not be so led by the ego. So thank you.
What an incredible experience. Thank you so much for taking us through that.
Mhm.
I would like to take a moment now and thank all of the speakers today and remind everyone that the next summit is coming up on January 4th, but don't leave, because if you enjoyed that experience, let's experience more together. I would like to encourage everyone to stay for the opportunity to experience the Empathy Circle. And I'm going to turn it over to Janna. Janna Weiss is an Empathy Circle facilitator and trainer and a 16 guidelines accredited facilitator. She's a PhD in biological sciences and is a human rights activist advocating for peace and the rights of marginalized groups. Janna also teaches mind science and practices, acupuncture, and herbalism. And she's going to take us through how to do an Empathy Circle. Take it away, Janna.
So welcome to the Empathy Summit Empathy Circle. And this is the interactive part of the Empathy Circle. And we'll have time when we go into our breakout rooms for a bio break. So you can stay now and it's okay. So thank you, Cara, and thank you, Ruth, and Jonathan, and Edwin, and the whole Empathy Summit team, and the whole Empathy Circle community. And thank you, everyone who has come and participated and listened. And now is our chance to speak and to be heard. So I'm Janna, and I'll facilitate this part of the summit. First, I'll share how we do the structured dialogue process. So the Empathy Circle is based on mutual active listening, as you've already heard. And the values core to the Empathy Circle practice are empathy, mutuality, openness, and care. And I love Empathy Circles because they are, as I said, a community building superpower that you can have too. So when I finish this introduction to the Empathy Circle, we'll go into our breakout rooms. So now I'll explain the process. Let's see. There's an image. Let's see. We can share the image. There are 4 roles in the Empathy Circle. The 4 roles are facilitator, speaker, active listener, and silent listeners. And we all take turns speaking and actively listening or reflecting what the speaker says. And the speaker chooses the listener and speaks to the circle topic or whatever is on their heart and mind. And the speaker also becomes an empathic speaker and speaks in small chunks and pauses often so that the active listener can reflect what they heard. And if the speaker doesn't feel that all or part of the reflection is accurate, they can make corrections and say it maybe in other words. When you're finished talking and you feel heard, you can indicate you are finished by saying, I feel heard, or I'm complete. And if you feel complete before your time is finished, you can end your turn early. And I'll share this entire intro, but if you don't remember it, it's okay because we learn by doing, and empathy circles are quite simple in practice. So as the active listener in your own words, or using the speaker's words, you will reflect the essence of what you heard until the speaker says they feel heard. Ask the speaker to pause if you need to reflect more before you hear more. This is not a dialogue, so refrain from asking questions, advising, sympathizing, judging, agreeing, or disagreeing, and you will be able to do that, all those things, when it's your turn. So your role is simply to reflect the speaker. As the listener, you simply reflect, and once your speaker reports being heard, it is your turn to be the next speaker. The active listener becomes the next speaker in the empathy circle. And everyone else who's not the active listener or the speaker is the silent listener. And this is an active role. The silent listener is listening to be fully present for the exchange between the speaker and the active listener, just as if they were the active listener themselves. Sometimes a silent listener will be engaged in something that might be a little bit distracting. If you feel you need to stretch or move or get something to drink, please refrain from doing anything that would distract the circle. But if you do need a break, just turn off your camera and mute and return to the circle as soon as you are able. We encourage everyone to keep their cameras on and to be fully present. The facilitator keeps the time and will help us stay in the empathy circle process. And really, once people become experienced in the empathy circle, the facilitator is really just a timekeeper. The facilitator will be the first active listener and will model reflective listening. The facilitator is a participant like everyone else. As the first listener, the facilitator will ask someone to volunteer to be the first speaker. Every breakout room will have a facilitator, and you'll be able to recognize your facilitators because we have ECF next to our names. And if you haven't put ECF next to your name and you're an empathy circle facilitator, you can please rename yourself now. And you might have more than one facilitator in your breakout room, and that's okay too. And we will be recording some of the breakout rooms. So if you would not like to be recorded, please put NR next to your name. We'll be taking 3-minute turns. The suggested topic is, what are your top takeaways about the empathy circle process from the presentations, or whatever is in your heart and mind? The best way to learn the empathy circle process is to experience it. And if you still have questions, you can put them in the chat, or when you get to your breakout room, you can ask your facilitator. And now I'll ask Edwin if we're all set.
And how long do we have?
We have 1 hour. We have
1
until
hour.
the top.
Okay, top of the hour. Okay, so I've made the rooms, and if anybody needs to drop out, it's a good time to drop out right now, so I can be sure there's enough people in each circle. I'll have some of the speakers in my circle, number 1. In the other one, Cara will facilitate room 2. Ruth will facilitate room 3. Janna, you'll do room 4, and Bill will do room 5. And then we'll give maybe about a 10-minute heads up. So we have about 55 minutes actually in the circle, because we'll come back to the top of the hour. And I think we're ready. We'll put the topic. Do we have the topic in the chat there, just so everybody has it to be sure? Okay. So I think we're ready to go into the groups now, and here we go. Oh, let me move everybody automatically assigned. Allow her. Okay, here we go. Hopefully this works. Oh, this circle is recorded, and let me get the view into gallery view. Great. And so I'll be the facilitator, and I'll be the first listener, and also do the timekeeping. And let me see, we have 3-minute turns. Let me reset that. Okay, and who'd like to be the first speaker? Our topic is just what were your takeaways from the workshop today, or anything else that's on your mind? And I'll be the first listener. Anybody like to jump in? 3-minute turns.
I can go first.
Okay, I'm listening.
Thank you. I am so happy that I attended this summit. A lot of questions the speaker said I asked in the first few times I went to Empathy Circle, like why Empathy Circle is so effective. And I heard a rich history of the Empathy Circle, I truly thrilled to be part of it.
I'm here really thrilled to be part of this empathy summit, and you had a lot of questions about empathy, and a lot of those got answered in the session.
Yes. So my takeaway is it's really effective, and it has a lot of very thorough series backed up on this. It's really well designed and very simple.
Yeah, so you're saying that it's well designed and simple, and it really has a lot to back it up. Maybe a lot of experience or research to back it up.
Yes, and so my personal experience is the empathy circle really guided me into a life of connect with myself first, in line with myself first, and it was easygoing and effortless way.
So you're finding this, the empathy circle that you took part in was an effortless way to really connect with yourself.
Yes. And also I find it's making my mind more simple. It's the simplicity of the empathy circle make me feel life can be simple and also enjoyable, and simple things can be very powerful.
And it's giving you an insight that simple things can be very powerful because the empathy circle is simple, and it kind of helps simplify your thinking and feelings.
Yes, so my follow the my heart with my practice with empathy circle. My goal is to simplify my life, but also enjoy to the fullest.
Yeah, you want to simplify your life and enjoy yourself to the fullest, and this is contributing to your enjoying life.
Yes, thank you. I feel heard.
Okay. Reset that, and I'll speak to Jackie. Yeah. Yeah, this was very fulfilling just to have everyone kind of exploring this topic of empathy circles, to just be able to share the history of it and getting all these different inputs. It's just been really delightful for me, just really enjoying it.
It's been very fulfilling and delightful to be able to share the background, how this came about, and all the different speakers in this container.
Yeah, it makes me hopeful. There's a momentum, and so that gives a sort of a sense of hope too. Like, oh yeah, it's possible to sort of transform society. Even if it's a small transformation, it's hopeful that it's possible and doable.
It's you feel very hopeful that in doing this, even if it's just one person at a time, that it will have a huge benefit to the world.
Yeah, we had, I think 40, 45 people at one point, and I do have a little feeling came up like, oh, I wish it was bigger. I wish we had 100, 200 people. So kind of my sense of wanting, bigger, faster, more intense growth. I felt a little bubbling up of that feeling just as I was speaking.
Even though there were 45 people at one point in the participating, these feelings of you were wishing it would have been hundreds of people that were coming up. That yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is a feeling of community and connection, because I've met everyone here, been in circles with everyone here, and it feels like a community, of that I'm not alone in the world. There's this community out there, and it kind of warms my heart to have these connections with all these different people. There's two things. One is to have a sense of community, but to be working on something together too. I find that working together towards a goal or a process that somehow is fulfilling somehow. Yeah, it's a nice feeling.
Um, I'm hearing that you're feeling a sense of community. You've met everyone in this room, done circles with them, but also we're working together to build a greater community of empathy.
Yeah, it's something about, like growing up, I used to, work together with family members. We do a project with my father or something. And there's something about doing something sort of practical, getting something done, but doing it together. So there's something fulfilling that I enjoy about that.
And that the feeling of fulfillment, like when you were growing up and working with your grandfather and doing something tangible to make things better, that this is another way of doing something fulfilling.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thank you.
Annette, would you be my listener?
Yeah, of course.
What came up after listening to all of the presenters is bringing this into the workplace.
Yeah, so what came up for you is bringing it into the workplace.
Because I had been thinking, oh, we should do this in, religious organizations, civic organizations, but it never occurred to me that the workplace would be a very key place to bring this into.
So you had thought before about civic or organizations, other places, but you hadn't thought about the key thing about bringing it into organizations.
And looking at the turbulent world we're in right now, someone had brought up the weaponization of empathy, and that just kind of struck me like a ton of bricks.
The idea of weaponizing empathy really struck you.
That you would think that we would want to be more empathetic, that we want to care about each other, but that just like, oh, I didn't even think that would be a thing.
Yeah, you hadn't thought that could be a thing because we should be caring about each other, wanting to.
Yes. And as Edwin brought up, that this is something tangible that you can do to bring people together and build community with people that may or may not ever interact with each other on a regular basis.
Yeah, so you're liking the part that it brings community and people together who don't normally interact.
And the understanding of not only what's in your own heart, but what's in other people's hearts is amazing.
So it's amazing not only to discover what's in your heart, but in other people's hearts.
And as was it Jesse had said, that it helps you to slow down, as opposed to just rattling off everything because you don't think the person's going to listen to you. You can pause and actually think through what you're going to say.
Yeah, when you're not worried if people are going to be listening to you, you can slow down, pause, take your time.
And also, you're reflecting back what I'm saying. I have to listen to what I was saying, and it's like, wait, did I want to say that? Is that sort of check and balance to everything.
Yeah, you're doing that resonating step when you're hearing back the words and you're checking. Is that what I mean? Or did I mean to say that?
Yeah. So I only see the upsides of doing this. So I'm just so happy to have attended and listened to everyone and get all these new ideas on how we can implement empathy circles.
Yeah. So you're thrilled to have been here and learning.
So, and I feel heard. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bob, will you be my listener?
I'm listening.
Okay. So I guess I was also interested in all the folks who spoke about bringing it into the workplace, and I'm looking forward to learning more about their work.
You were listening to the people talking about bringing empathy to the workplace, and that's something that attracts you right now.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have an MBA and have been wanting to come back to doing work more with the organizations, and it was on the back burner because I was becoming certified to teach focusing, and so now there's time, and it's exciting to be working with you all and collaborating with you more with the summit, and learning about that it's already been happening in organizations. I didn't know. So yeah.
So your MBA degree and your work with focusing helps you add seemingly a new dimension to what you can do with empathy.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I heard today, which surprised me, was the reflection from a few people how they were so tired after doing an empathy circle the first time. And so now as a teacher, I'm really curious because I don't think I've ever had a student tell me that. And so I'm curious if people are feeling that and just haven't told me that, because you always don't get all the information back. So I'm going to ask my students, or whether there's maybe ways, because we ramp up the listening, we don't go right into listening, whether there are ways to ramp it up, or maybe there's differences in focusing that make it slightly less taxing for whatever reason. And I don't know what that would be. But that's a point of curiosity now.
You're curious about how some people can feel overwhelmed and exhausted by being part of an empathy circle. And that helps you as a teacher think about bringing in more opportunities for folks to share what their level of energy has been after an empathy circle.
Yeah. And the one thing that's coming to mind now is that in focusing, we tend to say a bit more, in my experience, before the reflection, and the reflection maybe is summarizing a bit more. So maybe there's a bit more space, and maybe that could create a bit more room or less energy. Yeah.
So in your focusing work and your empathy work, you're now aware of a spaciousness that can be brought to the experience that might be helpful to people.
Yeah. Maybe that could be, it's like a hypothesis of maybe why maybe it is less tiring, or maybe, like I said before, people just aren't saying it. So yeah, thank you. I feel heard.
Jesse, would you please listen to me?
Sure.
Okay. As always, the empathy process and the empathy circles and the people in them help me shine, I hope, with the joy of being a human being on the way to fulfillment. And it's just a tremendous blessing.
So you feel empathy process help you to enjoy the human process, and it's a blessing for you to participate in this movement.
And the fact that 45 people chose to be part of this today and be making a difference for the better in the world gives me great hope for the world. And that I'm very grateful for that.
So you're grateful that 45 people showed up today and want to make a better contribution for the world. And you're very hopeful and very thankful that the world, there's a lot of people out in the world want to move into this direction.
Yes. And one thing that really touched me was from Anita's presentation talking about transcendence and the immense possibility and potential that awaits us.
The one touch you a lot is Anita's talk about transcendence, that how that can bring us all up to another level.
And I sense that we five here and the folks who are still going to be in the complete circle really embody that. And that, again, is such a tremendous gift to me.
And it's such a gift to you. And then you sense that it's the same with everybody in the circle today, another 45, that this will deeply in us. And that's what we all looking for.
And one last comment, no matter what happens in the election process over the next week or month or year, I'm going to keep coming back to empathy circles.
So no matter what the election result will be, many months and years after this, you're going to coming back to the empathy circle practice.
Jesse, thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I pick Jackie. I also feel very honored to be in this today's summit because I see so many thinkers here. They really take the empathy circle into many different directions that they touch their personal life.
You feel honored to be here, and you feel special that the people that are here are thinkers and are bringing this in different ways into their lives.
Yes, thank you. That stimulates my mind, and also reaffirm me that I am in the right process of empathy circle learning process.
And you feel validated, like you're in the right place, that this is the right place to be in these empathy circles.
Yes. And the more I participate, more I practice empathy circle, the more ease and in line with myself. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to hear so much like-minded people here.
And that the more that you participate and do the empathy circles, it soothes your soul, and it you're meeting all these wonderful people that are doing the same thing.
Yes, it really opens my eye, and I'm encouraged to practice more and more and learning from everybody. Thank you. I feel heard.
And that doing this, it's, you opened your eyes, and that you're looking forward to doing more of this in the future, the empathy circles.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Bob, would you be my listener?
I'm listening.
Circling back to what Annette had pondered, were people being tired after empathy circles. I'm wondering if it's a release that's causing the exhaustion and not the listening. It's the sharing.
You're wondering about Annette's comment about exhaustion, and is it a release more than a feeling of being exhausted?
Because if you haven't been heard, or you haven't felt like you've been heard, and all of a sudden it all comes out like a dam breaking, that could be causing the exhaustion.
So when one is appreciating being fully heard, the dam breaking of that not being heard power, that could be a source of the exhaustion.
Because I feel that the culture we're in is to tamp everything down, tamp the emotions, make sure that you're only saying things that are safe to others because you don't want to become an outcast. So you pack it in little boxes and put it on a shelf somewhere.
Our culture seems to require people to pack things away and stuff them rather than let them be free and open.
And within an empathy circle, it's a safe space that you can say anything.
So the empathy circle is a safe place where you can say anything safely.
And it's, encouraged for you to speak what's on your mind. And that is so freeing for the person speaking.
So the freedom in this safe space to say what's on your mind is very freeing.
And the challenge would be to the listener to have to reflect back, especially if it's not in alignment with what you're thinking.
So the listener is challenged to let go of prejudice and just be receptive and listening.
But in the container of the empathy circle, the time is really also a safe space that you've got this period of time, and then later it'll be your turn. If you're the listener, the interaction, the time is really the process is really what's makes it a safe environment.
So built into the empathy circle is the sense of shared time, and everyone gets an equal share.
Yes. And just, it's such a wonderful environment. I want to do more of this. And it's also a muscle that you need to practice, and strengthen the empathy.
So that's such a wonderful experience, and you want to do more of it, and it helps you exercise and build up your muscle of empathy.
Yes. Thank you so much. I feel heard.
Annette, would you please listen to me?
Sure, Bob.
Over the past week, I have had moments when my heart is racing and pounding, and I'm deeply, deeply afraid of what might happen in this country in the next week or two or month. So I'm aware of this deep fear.
So you've been noticing your heart pounding and fear in your system about the election and what will come after it.
Yeah. And I need to be aware of this empathy circle and this empathy movement, and to acknowledge the fear and have the love and the joy and the comfort and the community of the empathy circle be a foundation that can handle the fear.
So you're noticing that the community and its love and its joy can hold the fear and handle it.
And I don't want to go looking for trouble. And if trouble comes looking for me and finds me, I'll be able to respond with empathy.
Yeah, and then just noticing you don't want to go looking for trouble, but you have the skill of empathy. If it does, you'll be able to respond that way.
We have a next door neighbor who has a Trump flag in his front window. And I don't have a Trump flag in any of our windows. And I'm concerned that this fellow named Justin might do something crazy, because he's a crazy kind of a guy, I think. But with empathy, that's the best approach to anything that might happen with Justin.
So you have a neighbor, Justin, and you're maybe thinking that if he does something, you'll respond to him with empathy.
So empathy is at the heart of what it means to be a good neighbor, and I'm appreciative of Edwin and helping me learn it, and I'm thanking you for listening. Thank you very much. I feel fully heard.
Yeah, so you're grateful for learning these skills with Edwin and the whole community, and you're feeling prepared and you're feeling heard.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Edwin, will you listen to me?
Listening.
Yeah. So I just wanted to go back to Jackie and say I really resonated with everything you shared about the release being taxing. And I think that's often the case after therapy and stuff like that, right? You've processed something. And I was just thinking, like, that is true, that the more you process, the more that's the share was big. It can take time to incorporate that or integrate that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're appreciative of Jackie mentioning that, and you experienced this as well, that when you're processing something in therapy, that can be tiring.
Yeah. And there's a sense of we're so used to doing things in therapy and we're not used to doing them in other spaces. But of course, other things are therapeutic. And so I'm just realizing, right, the empathy circle is therapeutic. It's being able to experience humanity in a different way has a huge effect. That's kind of it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fantastic that in the empathy circle we're experiencing humanity in another way, like therapy. It's therapeutic.
Yeah. And that's such a hopeful thing, because when we get to experience something, this different way of being, we know it, right? We're not like, oh, that would be nice. We've actually just experienced this different way of interacting. And so from a broader, like, climate change or sustainability perspective, I think of it's like almost like a fractal. It's like, oh, okay, I can experience being a different way. And then it feels like it gives hope for other things to be possible too.
Yeah, it's really about the experiencing of something, and then if you can experience that, it gives you hope that other things you can experience and then change through that experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's really lovely. And so now I'm resonating with you, Edwin, about like, oh, we need to bring this to more people, and kind of the and there's it's like a combo of like, yes, more, and the trickiness of sometimes you do try stuff and it doesn't catch, or it takes so much time, right? Like the work is slow. And then when you were saying that, I was thinking of Bio's quote about going slow. So maybe there's something in that
Yeah.
do this in small groups and very carefully. Part of me wants to believe that we're really getting it right, so that when it does take off, we've like worked out the kinks, that we know the blind spots more or less, and hope maybe that's what's happening. Who knows?
Yeah, it's so yeah, you're resonating with sort of my desire feeling of wanting more growth, but then you're looking at perhaps going slower, being in groups and working out the kinks for all the process. So when it does, shoot up, that all the kinks have been worked out and ready for that to handle that growth.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. You're not like, yeah, just possibilities.
Yeah, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. I'll speak to Jesse.
Sure.
Yeah, in terms of the tiredness that was coming up, I was actually in the circle with Anita, who spoke about it in her first circle. And at the end of it, she says, "Oh, I didn't realize I'm not a good listener." That was part of the struggle and tiredness, I think, is, she's more of a presenter, putting ideas out there and presenting. And here she had to really listen. And that was, I think that's where the tiredness came. She had to, learn sort of a new listening approach.
So you think the tiredness is from the listening? Some people are naturally the speaker, presenter, and hard to listen. And when they trying to learn, practice listening, it can be wear out in some way.
Yeah, and I noticed that in myself too, when I was first doing empathic listening or active listening, that it felt there was something about it that it felt a little bit like sandpaper or something, like a feeling and a sandpaper and sort of a heaviness in some way. And I think and I even thought, well, how do we make this like more fun somehow? It's like, I mean, you get used to it, you get better at it, and then you start seeing the common humanity of people, and there's something beautiful in that feeling.
So when you first started practice listening, you had that similar feeling like a sandpaper, heavy, maybe stuck, sometimes stuck. And as it takes practice, when the practice going on and you feel the humanity in everybody's voice, you start to making progress.
Yeah, so that whole landscape of an empathic way of being, sort of exploring that, like what is that space and what does it mean? What does it feel like? And the focusing is in that space, focusing on the felt experience. There's something for me liberating in terms of being aware of the feelings in that space.
So by focusing on the landscape of empathic listening, liberate you for thinking about that space instead of feeling stuck with
sandpaper. Like sandpaper is like grating, right? It feels like it's kind of grating, rough
and noisy, noise, and a stiffness.
Yeah, but the one liberating experience is to share the sandpaper feeling, right? Oh, I'm feeling sandpaper now in my body, and to be able to share that sort of releases it, and releasing the heaviness, like, oh, I'm feeling really exhausted, by doing this process, by sharing that feeling, it actually kind of can create energy, can be released underneath the sharing of that feeling.
One way to release that is for sharing, like you sharing that you're really exhausted by this feeling of the sandpaper, and feel the energy was shared and released.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like in Chinese way we will say, when the joy was shared, it's doubled. When the
sorrow is shared or halved.
Yeah, cut in half,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll just mention that my mother's German. She used to say that all the time too. So I feel heard. Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, Bob?
I'm listening.
Great, thank you. I heard in my first circle, I heard a couple of people saying it was tired, but somehow I had a good time in listening and reflect. But the next day, I feel the tiredness.
In your first circle, you heard people speak of being tired, but you felt different. And then your second circle, you did feel the tiredness.
Yes, I think it has to do with the people you're listening. If if the energy can resonate with each other.
So you think it has something to do with the energy of the people in the group causing the tiredness?
Yes. As in life, we sometimes easier to listen to some people than the other. So I think it's all about the energy. Like Edwin said, you share the energy out and then your energy is lighten up.
So depending on who you're listening to, there's a different energy. And sometimes the energy is light and sometimes it makes you tired.
Yes. So I kind of feel every time I go to empathy circle, I feel at the end of the circle, my energy is well-rounded. It's very settled. It's not extreme excitement, not low, but it's like a sustainable. I feel the sustainable happiness.
So you're looking in the empathy circle for this continuing feeling of settledness. And I don't remember the other word you used, but it's a pleasant sensation.
Yes. The lightness, yes. And it's I think we have the universe has its own rules or laws. In a certain way we do things when it's matched with the universal laws, it goes like effortlessly.
So the universe has a set of laws, maybe a Tao, and when we're in sync with that, it goes effortlessly.
Yes. So I wonder that's why the empathy circle is doing so well, because it go in line with certain kind of universal law.
So the reason empathy circles work so well is that they are in line with universal law.
Yes. And I think also the reason I'm not really concerned about the election and the result is because everything I feel it will result by its own, because eventually it all has to fit with the universe.
So you're not concerned about the election because you realize all things will eventually fit into the universal pattern.
Yes, I feel really heard. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jackie, would you please listen to me?
Yes.
I'm resonating with Annette's talk about fractals.
You're resonating with Annette's talk about fractals.
We studied them in math and they're very complex. And for her to use it in an everyday situation really helps you understand that the patterns repeat themselves and duplicate themselves and can affect events farther away from the initial generation.
You're reflecting back on when you studied fractals in math, they're very complicated. Yet when Annette brought them up in a different scenario where things double and expand, you hadn't thought of that.
And listening to Jesse talk about the universal patterns and laws, how wonderful to be in sync with them through empathy.
And Jesse's bringing up of universal laws and that things end up in sync. It gives you hope.
I'm wondering if there's a book that needs to be written called The Tao of Empathy.
Now you're going to look to see if someone has written a book, The Tao of Empathy, or perhaps you should do that.
So again, what a gift the Empathy Circle has always been and is today. So I'm so grateful. Thank you.
And that you're so grateful for the gift of these empathy circles.
Jackie, thank you. I feel fully heard. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Edwin, would you be my listener?
Listening.
Oh, so many things have come up. And I'm wondering at what point the reason why we're tired, going back to that, is that we're not used to focusing on another. We're focusing on ourselves and what we're trying to say and not hear.
So you're speculating about what could cause tiredness, and one is on focusing on someone else instead of just concentrating on oneself.
And also the Jesse bringing up this universal, the universal law is that things will come out for the right reasons. Things will be okay.
So you're resonating with Jesse talking about things will be okay, that mindset in the end.
And that everything we do we can learn from it. We can learn from ourselves, what we say. We can learn from listening to the other person and what they're saying. And it brings commonality.
So there's that sense of being able to grow and learn from different situations, and that growth, there's a commonality maybe that we're all growing and learning.
And that it's, in a way, very liberating that you can find common ground with people that, one, you've never met before, and two, you don't know where they're coming from, but in the end, you've built a bridge between you and these other people.
So just that mindset of seeing, or that awareness that everyone's learning and growing, actually creates a sense of connection and yeah, that it's a bridge to connect with others, everyone, all humans.
And then the idea of fractals, where you tell, everything doubles. You tell two friends and they tell two friends, like that old commercial. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, even though it starts small, it ripples out like waves in a pond.
Yeah, the whole concept of fractals is a sort of a growth mechanism. It just starts with a couple and they just double and keep growing and sort of fill up the whole pond.
So what you've brought to the world, Edwin, with these empathy circles, do not lament that only 45 people came. If those 45 people told 45 people, pretty soon we're going to get to all 8 billion of us. So yeah.
So having some appreciation for the empathy circles, and just have a growth mindset that it'll grow, and don't try to encourage me not to worry or lament that there wasn't more people.
Oh yes, thank you so much. I feel heard.
Speak to Annette. Lou mentioned that after listening, sometimes your mind is blank. So yeah, my mind, there's sort of this spaciousness, a blankness. There's something pleasant about, I'm just in this space of blankness, and it's sort of a warm, fuzzy sort of a space with no real ideas. It's coming up. It's just enjoying the space.
So you're in this space of kind of blankness and no new ideas and just enjoying it. And can I ask you if I can ask you a focusing question?
Okay, we'll try it.
Kind of breaking the rules. You want to just savor it for a moment? Just take it in.
Yeah, so I'm savoring it, and as I savor it, I notice that sort of my awareness sinks from the here, and I'm savoring it, and the awareness sinks kind of more into my chest, and I feel a little bit of anxiety comes up, from the savoring of it. And before you'd asked that question, my mind was going to when I was younger, it was like fear of public speaking, because my mind would go blank in like a deer in the headlights, it's just, and nothing would come up, and I'd get scared of nothing coming up.
Mm. Mm. So the savoring brought a sense of anxiety, and you're remembering, and you had it before I asked the question, that when you were little, you were afraid of public speaking, and you'd get the deer in the headlights, no thoughts.
Yeah, it's like nothing would come up because I want to speak like authentically what's coming up, but nothing would come up, and all the eyes are looking at me, and I've got to do something. I got to make something happen, and then I'm like terrified that nothing's coming up, and so I kind of sink into this kind of a black hole of anxiety, and then the more anxious I get, the less I can even think of things to say too. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're saying it's like a vicious cycle. The more you're anxious you are, the more eyes there are, the more you're freezing, the less you have to say, the more terrified you are, and it just goes and goes.
Yeah, and the solution is I'm seeing is to name that. Say, oh, I'm going into a state of anxiety. I'm like feeling like a deer in the headlights. Nothing's coming up, and so it's actually to share it and release it, and not get sucked into that ball of anxiety or fear.
Yeah. So you're noticing that sharing it helps you not get sucked into it.
Yeah. And that's very focusing oriented. I mean, yeah, it's really, just keep following the feelings. That's all you can do. It's very just who we are. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I feel heard.
And you feel heard. Great. Thanks. Jesse, will you listen to me? Yeah, so actually I was going to start with something you said, something about for you had shared that I think you said maybe being with more positive emotions was easier and that more negative emotions was more tiring. And that made me think of actually what I notice I experience is that when I can understand, when I can follow, when I can take the perspective of whoever's sharing, it's kind of like a flow state, and that's easy. And when people are bouncing around and I can't follow, I can't make the connections, I can't understand, that's when it's really tiring.
So follow up with what I said about positive and negative. You are saying when you hear somebody, you can resonate and follow what they're saying. It's easier for you and less tiring. And when you hearing somebody you cannot understand and bouncing around all directions, you feel difficult to keep track and understand. That's more wearing.
Yeah, because it's like disoriented. There's no point of orientation of, some, and I'm thinking a bit more about focusing here, but still, it's like usually there's some logic, there's some like path that we can go, oh, okay, I understand how you went from that to that to that. And sometimes they feel like tangents and they come back to something, or it's a straight line, but somehow, or not even a straight line, a jagged line, but there's connections. But other times it just feels like random dots. There's no connection at all.
So when you feel when people have random dots and difficult to connect the dots and talking one another without any connection, it's all no focus. It's kind of difficult for you to follow up, and in your mind feel very unfocused and then very tired.
Yeah. And I know that part of me, that part that doesn't like to be disoriented, because that's like the perfectionist who always wants to know what's happening. And so I understand why it's uncomfortable for me.
So that brings up to learn yourself. You are the perfectionist and always want to know what's going on and trying to understand, to follow up, and maybe from that you can find a trend. But without that and you feel like pointless. So your mind started wandering and not very focused.
It's more that I get like what Edwin was saying, the freeze response. It's like there's no thought. I can't connect a dot. I can't help. It becomes more blank.
And you feel like when the people talking about things all directions, and you are not able to connect the dots, and you feel like pointless, like a blank, no focus, no core thinking about meaning of things. You didn't get any meaning from it.
Yeah. Well said. That brings something emotional. Yeah, they're not understanding, not having meaning. It's that hits a deep wound in me. Yeah.
So it hits you deeply when you feel blanked. It hits you really deep that it became really you feel lost. You feel lost, maybe.
Maybe not lost, but definitely unsafe.
Oh, you went to an unsafe mode, uncertain.
Yeah. It's like I don't understand. Yeah, that's what's underneath it, is this like, I don't understand why this is happening. That's the personal thing underneath the trying to relate to others and follow. Somehow it brings that up, because those two things are connected. Not understanding not understanding wound. They kind of wormhole. Yeah, so that makes it harder to stay present when that happens. Yeah.
So when you feel cannot connect with the other one, when what they are saying, you feel cannot stay in present with yourself.
There's a sense of that would happen. Yeah, thank you. I feel heard.
Okay, so we're going to be heading back. Thanks, everyone. Really enjoyed, especially towards the end, getting towards those felt experiences. I really enjoy exploring those. So we're going to head back and going to close the room right now. We'll have, there we go. We have 60 seconds to head back. I don't know if any other comments in that 60 seconds.
Just to say thank you to you all.
I feel a good quality summit is more important than how many people participate. I feel the quality is there. Thank you.
As Annette said, gratitude. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay, see you in the big room.
Good.
Leave room, leave breakout room.
Janna is actually going to be our debriefer today.
Oh, yes. So why don't we move over to Janna when she comes in? Where is Janna?
It'll be a couple seconds before everybody's brought back.
As we're filtering in, so much gratitude, everyone. That is what we ended our circle on, and I would just extend that here. So much gratitude for you coming to the summit. So much gratitude to our speakers for speaking at the summit. So much gratitude for those who stayed and got to experience the empathy circle. Just so much gratitude today, everyone.
So Janna was going to do the debrief. You're muted, Janna.
Okay. So welcome back. Thank you for staying for this empathy circle part. It is, I think, as wonderful as the presentations are, the very best part of the empathy summit. And we'd love to hear about your experience in the empathy circles. So please share, take 30 seconds. How was your experience in the empathy circle? And let me see, there are 25 of us here. So if it's all right, I'll call on you. Is that all right? Yeah, let me change my view so I can see everyone. So Anita, would you like to share how this was for you? Briefly. You're muted. Anita? There she is. No.
Oh, are you asking me?
Anita, yeah, if you'd like to share.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, sorry.
There's two Anitas.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there are two Anitas. Where's the other Anita?
I'm Annette.
Oh, Annette. Annette and Anita.
Slightly different pronunciation. That's why I was confused. Okay. So, lovely to be here today. Great to hear how empathy circles are coming into workplaces. That was really exciting to hear, and I look forward to learning more about that work. And my experience in the empathy circle was great. We had a lot of resonance of similar shared experiences, and we had a couple themes, and we were talking quite a bit about why one might be tired with this work, and that was really interesting. So thank you.
Thank you. Ingrid, would you like to share?
Yes, I'm super excited to see Maria Teresa here and also Janet. It's really great. I love those circle, those and Jessie, love to see you here too. There was in the circle, there was in a short time really some great depth that we reached, and it was quite touching. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, depth touching is our experience as well. Jessie?
Thank you. I'm so happy in this summit. The first time I attend this empathy summit, I had so much to learn from everybody. Thank you all for sharing and answered a lot of questions I have on the empathy circle. And I learned the rich history of empathy circle. And I'm really encouraged in this path. It's still a learning curve for me. And I'm so grateful for everybody's participation and supporting. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Ray, would you like to share your experience in our?
Oh, yes. I thought it was very valuable to hear everybody and then to have the opportunity to express myself. So enriching and very worthwhile to get the different viewpoints people and yet realize how much we have in common, that we're really not that different. So thank you and bless you for putting this event on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a whole team. And thank you. Bob, would you like to share?
Just so grateful for this event and all the folks in it, and sending out best vibes to everybody.
Ray? Ray host? This was Ray's first time in an empathy circle. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, yes. So it is my first time in an empathy circle, so I learned a lot as to how to, go through the different roles, and appreciated all the participants in my group very much. And also, I'm also very thankful for just this experience and all of everyone who's putting this on, and look forward to, looking more into this into the future. So all the different ways that all the speakers are using the tools, I love that, and just have a great hope for how this can impact humanity, which we really need it right now. So thank you.
Karen? Karen D, Poor People's Campaign. And
Me?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just thank you. This is a learning experience. It was, there's some incredible people there. I wish they were in my circle of life right where I am now. But thank you for sharing. It fills me with hope.
Thank you. Hope. That's beautiful. Thank you. Tara?
Yes, I feel just filled with gratitude that this is still going on. I'm so grateful to you, Edwin, and the whole team. Yeah, I'm an NVC practitioner for many, many years, since the early 90s. And so this is just right up my alley, very parallel to my deepest values. And so I'm thrilled to once in a while be able to be a part. And I'd like to hopefully get more involved and be more of a part. Thank you to everybody. You're all remarkable people to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria Teresa?
Yes, thank you. A tremendous amount of gratitude. I'm a disciple of NVC, of Nonviolent Communication, have always been enthralled with the process. And this seems like a logical avenue to continue the growth in that area. And so very grateful to Ingrid, who sent me the email and invited me, and all the wonderful work she and Daniel have been doing. And just very grateful and hopefully and eager to learn more, and a lot of hope. So thank you.
Thank you. Jackie?
Oh, so much gratitude to this and everyone here. Just, we are the change. You know, if we tell two friends and they tell two friends, pretty soon everybody will be able to experience this sort of change within ourselves and within each other. So thank you, Edwin, for the empathy circles, and look forward to doing more.
Thank you, Jackie. Julia?
Well, thank you for unmuting me. I'm very grateful too, because I trained with Edwin way back, and then participated for some time with the Extinction Rebellion empathy circles, but I think they stopped for a while, and this is my first one. And again, I'm always filled with dread that I won't get things right when I'm on the spectrum and ADHD, so listening is one of my biggest fears. Oh gosh, thank you, co-host Cara Jean. So you probably understand how it is. It's really hard, especially when people start talking about quantum physics. It's really blinking, really hard. Oh God. Anyway, it was nice to meet some other humans. And no, seriously, being human for me is having compassion, and there's so little of it in the world. And thank heavens for these kinds of circles. Thank
you, Julia. Let's see here, Janet. Yeah, you're muted. You'll need to unmute. It's JN here. It's Janet.
Yes. Here we are. Yes, I am a lot more relaxed than I was a few hours ago. I was great to speak to Jonathan again and to meet Tara. And to be able to interact with people that actually listen.
Thank you. Mohammed, is that your name? Andrew? You're muted. You need to unmute.
Thank you very much. This is my second time, and I feel like having knowledge I need, and I feel listened, and even listening to others. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anita, would you like to share? We'll come back to Punita. Who haven't I called on? Jeanette.
Again, deep appreciation and gratitude, and I will go back and listen to the parts I missed the first hour. But this always brings it back to my own self-honesty and the need not only for compassion for self and others with empathy, but also courage to change. I feel that, or it's not even feeling, this work mirrors my patterns of relinquishing control and also being open to something that takes a lot of courage in terms of trust when there is a power imbalance. So it starts with empathy, absolutely, and hearing others and being heard. But there's another step that I'm seeing that takes a bit of courage, and that's a mystery about the next piece of it when things don't change in our culture or with people who have more power. So I appreciate the practice immensely and just pondering on the next stage of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Maria, I'm happy to see you here. Welcome.
I'm unmuted now, Janna. You can call on me when you're ready.
Okay, and then Maria after you. Go ahead, Punita.
Thank you. So, wow, I shared in my circle, Edwin, that I haven't been in one of these circles in, I don't know, 10 or more years. And so grateful to you and this community for continuing to do this in the world that we so needed. This was a really rich experience for me. To be in a pure empathy circle, because I've been doing NVC for like 20 years and I kept making guesses instead of just reflecting. And I love this practice. I love it. We so need this, and I'm so grateful. Thank you so much to my group, to the circle, to all of you.
Thank you, Punita. Thank you. Maria, and then I'll call on Janet after you. Go ahead. Maria, if you'd like to unmute. The host needs to do it. Ask to unmute.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't do it technically. Yeah, thank you for creating these empathy circles. And it has been a wonderful experience also to be at this summit. And also thanks to all the participants, especially in our empathy circle, we were blessed to have two musicians, and we also shared that music is a great way to feel interconnectedness. And also a way of empathy somehow, because it bridges people.
Thank you, Maria. Janet? Thank you.
Hi. I really enjoyed the small circle I was in, and I feel that it was a refreshing, change of pace to be heard by people that actually intend to listen.
Thank you. Let's see who's here. Daniel, have you spoken?
Okay, I really enjoyed the connection, and what I continuously what I enjoy so much is that we can connect with each other so quickly. I don't know you, and yet I feel so connected to you, and this gives me tremendous hope. I feel like all of us, all of humanity just needs to turn into that and we'll be good. We'll okay if we can unleash that empathetic wave.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, I'm getting hearts here. Ruth, and then Anita.
Hi, thanks very much, Janna. Yeah, I want to thank everybody in the empathy circle that we had. I was in the circle with Daniel playing the drums, and Craig was also a musician and showed his music piece. Thank you for your patience, everybody. Yeah, I really look forward to joining you all again in this process. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Sally? Oh, who did I say? Anita, and then Sally. It doesn't.
I was unable to unmute before, so I really want to thank Cara for having me here. I really feel seen and heard, and it's just really a great experience to be a part of. And I learned so much more about empathy, and this should be really taught around the world in schools, businesses, and governments and things. So I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Sally?
An amazing gathering of people, everyone focusing as hard as possible to listen. I want to thank Edwin for his and just endless work to keep the movement going, and you, Janna, and of course Bill is hilarious. And I'm just gonna let other people talk.
Thanks, Sally. Thank you. Yeah, I got some featured role, but I didn't do all the work. Ruth and Jonathan and did a lot of work. Thank you. And Tina? Asked to unmute here. Let's see.
So I just want to extend my gratitude to Edwin for this amazing process that has changed my life for the better. I enjoyed our circle today, and every opportunity that I have to be present in Empathy Circle. And I too hope that schools, Empathy Circles, become part of the curriculum in schools so that children can learn to really hear what's being said and not be reactive and respond. I think it could save lives, and I really would like to see more circles everywhere globally. So I'm certainly promoting them. So, and I look forward to our next summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Jonathan? Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, we had a lovely empathy circle, and my two participants I was hosting just resonated. They were sharing their frustration with modernity, actually with politics, and I just felt like it was just I'm not alone, because it was just so lovely knowing that other people kind of feel the frustration I feel, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, not alone. We're all together. Thank you so much. Bill, would you like to share?
Sure. I just appreciate everybody being here and, taking the initiative to, engage in empathy and also spread it. It's a great medicine compared to what I'm getting on media. Thank you.
Thank you. DJ and Cara? And
Okay, I finally got unmuted there. Yeah, it was a wonderful circle. I really like what Jeanette was saying about there's always a learning process. And there's always room for growth. And this concept of being in a circle and the process being simple. And it's a place where you're not going to be judged for what you say anyway. You're just going to be heard. It's such a phenomenon that really can't be found anywhere else on this planet. And that's the potential, I think, for peace building. To remember that we need to apply these lessons outside the circle to really make the impact. So thank you very much to everyone who worked hard to put this together. Much gratitude to Edwin for his brilliance in keeping this simple. I do think that's the beauty of it. Thank you.
thank you, DJ. DJ hosted the last Empathy Summit, and you can see that it's recorded. Check it out. And she's got an empathy circle you can also check out. Cara, go ahead.
Right as I went to go get coffee. I would say gratitude. I already think I said that, but I would say it again. So much gratitude for everyone who spoke, for everyone who made this happen, specifically to Jonathan for making everything look so seamless, like we all have this together so well, and Edwin for creating this space and this process with your team of experts, Bill and Lou and everyone else who's gotten to be involved in this. I use it every single day in my personal coaching practice. I train it at all of my corporate events because I think that it's that simple thing that it just allows us to human better. And as a neurospicy person myself, more humaning, more better my life. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Cara. So I'll say something and then I'll turn it over to Edwin and then you can share how it was for you. Does that sound okay, Edwin? So we had a beautiful empathy circle and thank you for coming. We had 3 people who were brand new to an empathy circle, and Jeanette was in my circle, and it was quite moving. Thank you. And as for the future, I believe that we haven't even begun to tap the potential of this community and this practice for problem solving and for conflict resolution. So with that kind of view to the future, I'll thank you all very much for this opportunity. And I'm very honored and very happy to be with everyone. Thank you. Go ahead, Edwin.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I want to thank the speakers and the volunteers and the participants for taking part and working to build this empathic culture. We've talked about the empathy circle, but it's only a gateway practice to a larger vision of transforming society to be more mutually empathic. And that just means for people to listen to each other, work out their differences, collaborate together to just to create more well-being and flourishing for humanity. And for me, it seems that empathy is sort of the core, the gateway value for that, and that mutuality too. And I love in our circle the shared working together on a project, having that community, but working towards something in a constructive and innovative and creative and connecting direction. So with that, we're kind of coming to the close, and I think we're going to post into the chat. Maybe we already posted it. Let me see. Yep, we did. So there's some links there. And the first one is if you would like to save all the information from the chat room, there's 3 buttons next to your name in the chat, and you click on those. and you click on Save Chat, then that will save it for you on your hard drive. It has all the links to all the authors, but if you go to the next Empathy Summit link, number 3, it will take you there is what it'll take you to the website, and all the authors and their information is listed there. If I could ask you, number 2, if you scroll up, you see fill out the Empathy Summit feedback form. If you could just take a second right now to just click on that, and it should open a Google form. I mean, you already did sort of debrief, but if you'd like to debrief a little bit more and add your name, your email, a little bit of information about you, we can add you to our newsletter, and just a way to stay in contact with us. So just open up that form, and then when we close, you'll be able to fill that out and have that handy. The next summit is January 4th. We're doing a series of these summits on the Empathy Circle as a foundational practice of the empathy movement. So if you have experience with empathy circles and you would like to share those, you can contact us. My email is pretty much everywhere. And you can send an email, say, hey, yeah, I'd like to be a speaker, and we'll send you information about how to be a speaker in the next one, or if not January, I think it's in April would be the next one, just to share your insights, to work together to build this community of practice. And then we have, let's see, the Empathy Center website. So you can go to theempathycenter.org, and that's the sort of our gateway website. That's the Empathy Center kind of behind me here in Santa Barbara. And then you can just learn more about programs, workshops we have. And then we have number 5.5 is the next Empathy Circle facilitation training is going to be here in January 16th and 17th. So there's a link there for how to get connected to that. And actually, I'm seeing that let me say the empathy. I'm going to put the link in directly to the training in case you're wanting to come to Santa Barbara. And we do have accommodations, so you can stay. There's accommodations over here. And then we have, what do we have? And you can see the schedule for all of our trainings, workshops, there's a link there to the schedule. A lot of people hold empathy circles, and you're welcome to hold them. We give you permission to post your events to the empathy calendar, circle calendar. So you just post your events there just to help get the word out and really help share your practice, with others, and hopefully get more people involved in your circles. And I think that's it. I'm going to go to the gallery view. So we're all here. And is there anything else? I think we've got it all. You got something, Bill?
Just the next training is not January 16th and 17th, but November.
November. Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Oh, thanks for catching that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's just in 2 weeks here. Yeah. And with that, yeah, Tara? Yeah, I'm not
There
sure.
there we go. Yeah. I couldn't figure out in the chat how you said look at the 3 dots. I don't see the option to save the whole chat. Could you direct that again?
Yeah, if you look at the chat, there's your name for the chat, at least in mine, it says Edwin Rutsch's personal meeting room, but then there's 3 dots next to it. And then it gives you the option to save chat and so forth. I don't know if someone else maybe is that everybody else's experience? Oh, you're on a cell phone, so it's probably a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't see the 3 dots. That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could be different on a cell phone. I'm not sure what probably you don't have as much space there. So, but go to the website, and everything's there on the website. So we like to end with our applause, sort of get a group portrait of applause, get everybody mirroring that applause. It's yay. So, and with that, we will see you the next time. So thanks so much again, and look forward to seeing you all in the next Empathy Summit or in some of the other events that we host. Bye for now.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Peace, everyone. Peace.
Really, we need it now for sure.
Stop the recording. Anybody know where the recording, stop recording? They've moved the button on it.